Chapter 61, Choosing a Dress. Li Xueqian's fingers trembled slightly after sending the message. She knew she was playing with fire. But in the face of the investor's urging, she could only use this desperate method to steal the technology to solve the urgent problem. And she also had to rush to make the system before Yian. By then, even if Yian came up with the system, she could still bite back and accuse Yian of plagiarism. Yian would then be in a difficult situation with no way to defend himself. His reputation and career would be severely damaged, and he would become a pariah. Everything he has now would be gone. Under such circumstances, she doesn't believe that Yian won't come back honestly to beg for her forgiveness and ask for her forgiveness. Thinking about this, Li Xueqian's mouth slightly raised a smug arc. Even the strange looks from the foreign friends at the next table from time to time were not as piercing. Ding Group Headquarters. A most luxurious office. Ding Xinhui is buried in paperwork. Secretary Wang is reporting to her about the next schedule. Without looking up, Ding Xinhui's pen in her hand quickly signs her name on the document. The next meeting and schedule are postponed. Go out with me. Secretary Wang is slightly stunned. Although she is puzzled, she does not dare to ask more, and immediately nods. Okay, Ding Dong, I'll make the arrangements. After saying this, he hurriedly turned around to coordinate various matters. Ding Xinhui then looked up and leaned back in her comfortable office chair. She gently rubbed her temples and Yian's appearance came to mind. This business banquet is a perfect opportunity for Yian. His talent and ability don't make her worry. So he must not make a mistake with his attire. Although the family already has a set of formal wear ready, she still feels that it is not perfect enough. She wants to make a personal selection, and make sure that Yian will be the center of attention at the banquet. After a while, Secretary Wang returned to report. Ding dong, it's all been arranged. The car is downstairs and ready to go at any time. Ding Xinhui nodded, got up and walked out with a capable stride, followed closely by Secretary Wang. A high-end custom-made formal wear store. As soon as Ding Xinhui stepped through the door, the shop assistant was attracted by her extraordinary temperament and warmly welcomed her. Miss, welcome. We have just received several very unique women's dresses in the store, all of which are from well-known designers. Before the shop assistant could finish speaking, Ding Xinhui interrupted. Introduce me to the men's dresses. The shop assistant froze for a moment, but then his smile returned to his face and he said enthusiastically. Miss, this way please, our men's formal wear section is over here. Saying this, he made a guiding gesture with his body to lead the way in front of Ding Xinhui. Ding Xinhui had wanted to order a few suits for Yian. However, there were only 2 or 3 days left before the banquet at the weekend. It would take at least a week, or even a few months, to order a suit. So she could only come and see if there were any ready-made suits that would suit Yian. The salesperson walked over to a dress. It was a solid black dress made from top-quality foreign fabric, with a delicate and crisp texture. Ding Xinhui's gaze lingered on the black dress for a short while. However, she did not look particularly satisfied, and continued to walk with the salesperson. Miss, please take another look at this dark gray dress, which is made using a special dark pattern weaving technique. The salesperson went on and on with her introduction, her eyes full of expectation, hoping to win over Ding Xinhui. Ding Xinhui remained calm, just carefully examining each dress on display. Although these dresses were all different, they seemed to lack something that would suit Yian's unique temperament. It had to be youthful and energetic, yet also calm and restrained. It had to stand out among the business elites. Secretary Wang silently observed. Watching Ding Xinhui's picky and serious appearance, she couldn't help but sigh that the boss really cares about Yian. On the way here, she already learned from Ding Xinhui that she was here to select a dress for the boss's wife. In Wang Xiyu's impression, Ding Xinhui has devoted most of her energy to handling group affairs. So she has never been so attentive when choosing clothes for herself. Now, however, she was going to great lengths to find a dress for Yian, showing her persistence and meticulousness. It was enough to show that Yian held an extraordinary position in her heart. Secretary Wang had a new understanding of Yian's position in her boss's heart. Time passed slowly. Ding Xinhui continued to browse with the shop assistant in the men's dress section. The shop assistant introduced another navy blue dress. Ding Xinhui paused as she listened to the introduction. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she took a closer look. She reached out and gently stroked the fabric of the tuxedo, feeling its texture. She pondered how Yian would look in it. The tuxedo was indeed unique, but it still fell a little short. It didn't quite meet her expectations of how Yian would look at the banquet. Ding Xinhui shook her head slightly, still not quite satisfied. Let's look at something else. The salesperson nodded. Yes, miss, this way please, we have many more styles. Just then, Ding Xinhui's gaze was attracted to a silver gray dress. The dress shimmered with a faint metallic luster in the store's lighting. The fabric looked light but not lacking in texture, with a unique sense of flow. The cut was slim but not tight, with smooth and natural lines. It was as if it had been tailored for Yian. A flash of surprise crossed Ding Xinhui's eyes as she quickly walked up to the dress and took a closer look. The salesperson, who was watching her attentively, noticed that Ding Xinhui seemed very interested in the dress. He hurriedly introduced it, saying, Miss, you have excellent taste. This is a new dress in our store. It was handmade by a world-famous designer over a period of 3 years. As Ding Xinhui listened to the salesperson's introduction, the corner of her mouth lifted slightly, and she was quite satisfied. She could already see Ian looking handsome in this tuxedo. His outstanding temperament would definitely shine at the banquet and become the focus of everyone's attention. This is it. The shop assistant's face immediately beamed with a bright smile when he heard Ding Xinhui's firm tone. Miss, you have excellent taste. This tuxedo is the pride of our store, and many guests have sung its praises. Unfortunately, we have never met the right person to bring out its beauty. The salesperson continued with a smile, full of enthusiasm. Moreover, this tuxedo is actually a couple set, with a matching dress for the lady. It is so difficult to find someone who can bring out the beauty of both the man's and the woman's tuxedos. That is why this set has not been sold yet. Miss, would you like to see the lady's dress as well? Chapter 62 Yian is really lucky. Chapter 62 Yian is really lucky. Ding Xinhui was momentarily taken aback. She hadn't expected the dress to be a matching couple set. A thought flashed through her mind. Yian was wearing a silver gray tuxedo, with a tall figure and outstanding temperament. If she were to wear the matching lady's dress and stand next to him, they would definitely look extremely good together. Just thinking about that scene is beautiful and heartwarming. Secretary Wang watched Ding Xinhui's somewhat moved appearance and smiled, saying, Ding Dong, I think you should take a look. You and Mr. Yi appearing in the same scene wearing matching couples' outfits would definitely be a stunning sight. Secretary Wang also began to secretly look forward to it. If the boss and Yian could really wear matching outfits in the same frame, it would be very eye-catching. She really wanted this couple. Ding Xinhui's fair face flushed slightly, and she coughed lightly to hide her slight shyness. Okay, since you've said that, let's take a look at the lady's dress. Upon hearing this, the shop assistant's smile became even brighter. Okay, miss, this way please, the lady's dress is over here. I'll tell you, the matching lady's dress is also specially designed and complements the man's. He said, and then cheerfully led the way, his footsteps unusually light. In no time at all, the salesperson brought them to the display area for women's dresses. Miss, this is the matching women's dress. The salesperson pointed to a dress that was also a silver gray color, but had many different details. Look at the fabric, it's the same material as the men's one. And the skirt, with its irregular design, will flutter gently with each step, as if a fairy had just descended from the heavens. Ding Xinhui carefully examined the lady's dress, and a look of satisfaction gradually appeared in her eyes. She reached out and gently stroked the fabric of the dress, feeling the texture. Already, she could imagine herself wearing it and standing next to Yian. She turned to look at Secretary Wang, who nodded eagerly, his eyes full of excitement. Ding dong, this one is perfect. You will look absolutely stunning in it, and standing next to Mr. Yi, you two will make a perfect match. So, shall we try it on? Secretary Wang immediately clapped her hands in approval. Yes, Ding Dong, go ahead and try it on, I can't wait to see the results. She was so excited that she looked even more eager than Ding Xinhui herself. The salesperson also laughed and agreed. Miss, you should try it on. This dress will definitely bring out your elegance. Standing next to that gentleman, you will definitely be the most dazzling couple at the banquet. Meanwhile, Yian had been busy for most of the afternoon and finally finished the work at hand. Next, he continued to improve the financial risk early warning system without stopping. Yian stared at the computer screen, his fingers tapping rapidly on the keyboard. Lines of code kept scrolling across the screen. However, As the system progressed, his brow gradually furrowed, and a hint of gravity appeared on his face. He stopped what he was doing and leaned back in his chair. He rubbed his aching eyes and was filled with conflict. Just now, in the process of improving the financial risk early warning system, he felt more and more that there were quite a few problems with the current version. These problems were not minor flaws, but could affect the accuracy and stability of the entire system. Once put into use, it is likely to trigger serious consequences. Yian is well aware of the importance of this system. It not only concerns the reputation and future development of his industry, but also has the potential to affect the entire industry. He is unwilling to take a work with obvious defects to attract attention, even if it means spending more time and effort starting over. He sighed and gritted his teeth. He finally decided to self-pass the current version. Yian let out a long breath, slowly got up, and stretched his body, which had become slightly stiff from sitting for so long. He knew that he could not blindly continue working at this moment, since he had already noticed that there were many key problems with the current version of the system. He had to stop first and reorganize his thoughts. He knew that working behind closed doors was never a good idea. In order to create a perfect and highly practical system, he had to extensively explore and draw on the wisdom and experience of all parties. He first went to the company's reference library, where he walked between the rows of bookshelves. From time to time, he jotted down key points in his notebook. After leaving the reference library, Yian went straight to the company's internal database. Logging in with his own permissions, he began to sift through the massive amount of data and professional literature to find the information he needed. However, although he had found a lot of valuable information after searching for a while, Yian still felt that something was missing. The key idea that would suddenly make everything clear and enable him to break through his current predicament still hadn't appeared. He returned to his office and rubbed his temples. Perhaps at the banquet he would meet someone or something that would light the fire of inspiration within him. Before long, Ding Xinhui emerged from the fitting room, dressed in her formal attire. Secretary Wang and the shop assistant were instantly captivated, their eyes filled with awe. Ding Xinhui was already very beautiful, especially that face. She takes good care of her skin, and it is so delicate that she doesn't even need to wear foundation. It is so smooth and tender. She is truly a natural beauty. Before, every time Secretary Wang was amazed by Ding Xinhui's beauty, she felt a little sour in her heart. But then she realized that her boss is a love-struck fool, and her heart immediately felt a lot more balanced. However, now looking at Ding Xinhui in front of her, Secretary Wang still couldn't help but let out a gasp. Sigh. Yian is truly blessed. This face, this body, this temperament. If she were a man, she would make everyone else look bad. This is what a woman should look like. Compared to Ding Xinhui, she felt like Zhang Fei, who only had his period. Ding Xinhui felt a little uncomfortable and gently pulled her skirt. She asked shyly, "What do you think? Does it look good?" Although Yian would not have the chance to see her in this dress at the banquet, but Ding Xinhui still couldn't help wanting to get a positive response from Secretary Wang and the shop assistant. Secretary Wang nodded excitedly, her eyes shining. "It looks great, and it goes perfectly with Mr. Ye's tuxedo." The shop assistant kept praising her as well. "Miss, you really look beautiful in this dress. Your temperament and figure bring out the essence of this dress. If that gentleman sees you like this, he will definitely be enchanted and fall head over heels for you." As Ding Xinhui listened to these compliments, the blush on her face deepened, but her heart felt as sweet as honey. She walked over to the mirror and once again looked at herself carefully, imagining the scene of her and Yian in the same frame. Although Yian couldn't see her this time, there might be a chance in the future. Then, Ding Xinhui glanced down. Is this too low? Chapter 63, Don't Mess with Yian. It's not low, it's not low. Secretary Wang looked at it and was jealous. If I had this figure, I would want it to be even lower. Ding Xinhui not only has a thin waist and long legs. Now there is a dress to set it off. It looks even more attractive. Ding Xinhui was amused by her words and burst out laughing. The little annoyance she had about the height of the neckline also instantly dissipated a lot. An office, spacious and imposing. A heavy solid wood desk occupies the center. Behind it, bookshelves are filled with all kinds of business books and precious collections, demonstrating the owner's status and taste. In the office chair sits a man in his 50s. His hair is combed meticulously, with a few strands of silver mixed in with the black. He is Xiao Qidong, Xiao Wenjun's eldest uncle. At this moment, the secretary respectfully stood in front of the desk and whispered, Mr. Xiao, according to the investigation over this period of time, it is worth noting that Yian seems to have a close relationship with Ding Xinhui of the Ding Group. But the specific relationship has not been found yet. Xiao Qidong also heard the news that Yian had taken over Lin Zhenyue's project. Out of curiosity, he had someone investigate it. Xiao Qidong was originally going through the documents in his hands when he heard this, and his hand movement paused for a moment. He then looked up and said, I understand. Although no emotion could be seen on his face, he was already deeply stirred inside. Yian was just a young man with no experience, so how was he related to Ding Xinhui? The Ding Group was a major player in the business world. Ding Xinhui was the key figure who controlled many business lifelines. Her decisions and connections could easily cause a major stir in the business world. If Ding Xinhui is Yian's patron, then this young man cannot be easily offended. After so many years of struggling in the business world, he knows. At present, Yian may seem slightly naive, but with a powerful patron like Ding Xinhui, his rise is only a matter of time, and his future potential in the business world is limitless. If Yian is offended, then the Xiao family will face a huge threat in the future. As the head of the Xiao family, he shoulders the responsibility for the family's rise and fall. He must not bring disaster to the family through a momentary oversight or rash actions. Therefore, before thoroughly figuring out the relationship between Yian and Ding Xinhui, the family members must all remain restrained and not touch this potential powder keg. Thinking about this, he frowned slightly, and a trace of doubt and vigilance flashed in his eyes. After a moment, he spoke again to his secretary. Continue investigating, and make sure you find out everything there is to know about their relationship. And remind the family members not to provoke Yian, or I won't go easy on them. The secretary listened to Xiao Qidong's unquestionable tone and nodded quickly. Yes, Mr. Xiao, I'll make the arrangements right away. After saying this, he hurriedly left the office. 15 minutes later, the secretary returned, tiptoeing into the office. In her hand was a document. Mr. Xiao, the list of invitations to the business world has been confirmed. Please take a look, she said, and gently placed the document on the desk, then stepped back and waited quietly for instructions. Xiao Qidong put down the other matters he was dealing with, reached for the document, and slowly opened it. His gaze swept over the list, and when he saw Xiao Wenjun's name, his brows furrowed for a moment, and his eyes clearly showed a hint of displeasure. This Xiao Wenjun really is good for nothing. In order to salvage the project of the old devil Lin Zhenyue, he had his third younger brother Xiao Hongqiu's company not make a single penny. A full 85% of the profits were handed over to Yian. But this nephew of his, Xiao Wenjun, is good. Not only does he not reflect on his own problems, but he also lies and falsely reports to him, taking credit for himself. He had the nerve to claim credit for Yian's achievements, and even lied to him. He had thought that Xiao Wenjun had reformed and no longer acted like the boastful young man he had been. But he had not expected that the boy was still the same, that he had not improved at all. With his style of doing things, what could he accomplish at the business banquet? He might even cause trouble at the banquet and bring shame to the Xiao family. At this thought, Xiao Qidong's face grew even more gloomy. He snorted in contempt and made up his mind. He looked up at his secretary and said in a cold tone, "Cancel Xiao Wenjun's name. This brat is not qualified to attend the business banquet." The secretary did not dare to ask any questions and just nodded quickly. "Yes, Mr. Xiao, I will go and take care of it." Xiao Qidong waved his hand, indicating that the secretary could leave. Seeing this, the secretary quickly picked up the list of names and left the office in a hurry. Xiao Qidong leaned back in his office chair, gently rubbing his forehead, his heart full of disappointment for Xiao Wenjun. He knew that if the Xiao family wanted to establish a long-term foothold in the business world, the cultivation of family members was crucial. But Xiao Wenjun was so unmotivated, and all he knew was to take advantage of his family background and do whatever he wanted, which was really giving him a headache. They got into the car and headed back to the company. The atmosphere in the car was quiet and comfortable. Ding Xinhui was still basking in the joy of having found a satisfactory dress. Just then, Wang's phone suddenly rang, breaking the tranquility in the car. She quickly answered the phone and listened to the report on the other end of the line, her face gradually becoming grave. After hanging up the phone, Wang turned to Ding Xinhui, her tone a little cautious. "Ding Dong, I just got news about the previous incident where Yian took over the project from President Lin. Based on the clues we have so far, we can deduce that Xiao Wenjun and his son are behind this. Upon hearing this, Ding Xinhui's originally gentle eyes instantly became cold. But she just said lightly, "I know, continue to investigate, and keep an eye on their little moves." Although her tone was calm, she was already disgusted with the actions of Xiao Wenjun and his son. Although the business world is like a battlefield, with endless means of competition. But the sneaky and underhanded tactics of Xiao Wenjun and his son are truly despicable. What's more, Yian is also involved in this matter. She will not let others bully Yian like this, and she must find out the truth and give Yian an explanation. Secretary Wang looked at Ding Xinhui's cold and indifferent eyes, and she really couldn't understand. She couldn't help but ask. "Ding Dong, you have already acquired their company, and you are now the real boss. In theory, to get rid of Xiao Wenjun and his son now is just a matter of you saying the word, right? Why go to such trouble to investigate their little moves? Just fire the father and son, and it will also be a way to vent Mr. Ye's anger." Chapter 64, My husband is so handsome. Ding Xinhui paused for a moment, and then said indifferently. "Precisely because I am the boss of their company, that is why I cannot do this. If I were to kick them out without evidence. In the eyes of the employees, this would be an indiscriminate and typical move to get rid of someone after they have served their purpose. After all, I have just acquired their company, and these two are still in management. If I make a big fuss and get rid of the previous leaders at this time, I will inevitably be criticized for being overbearing and unreasonable." After Ding Xinhui finished speaking, she looked out the car window at the bustling street scene outside, and her thoughts drifted away a bit. Her name has been on the world's rich list for many years, so she naturally knows that reputation and word of mouth are very important in the business world. Although Xiao Wenjun and his son's underhanded behavior was indeed detestable. But she had to follow the rules, otherwise what was the difference between her and the father and son? Obtaining conclusive evidence and then taking action against them at the right time would be a justifiable cause and would convince everyone. On the other side of the street, Yian punched the time clock and left work on time, arriving at the company parking lot. He saw a young woman with a pretty face waiting in front of his Mercedes-Benz. She had heard about Yian's recent extraordinary deeds at work. Out of curiosity, she had secretly sneaked into Yian's department to observe him. She had never expected that Yian was also a handsome guy. Later, she even heard that Yian usually commuted to work in a luxury car like the Mercedes-Benz G-Class. This capable and wealthy young man instantly made her heart flutter. Today, she mustered her courage and planned to ask Yian for his contact information. When she saw Yian's handsome figure approaching, she smiled and said, "You must be Yian, right? I've heard a lot about you at work. Can we add each other on WeChat?" As she spoke, she played with the hair at the side of her face. "Stupid guy. With my charm, it's not hard to get you." Yian glanced at the woman in front of him, and his heart immediately started racing. From what she said, she seemed to work at the same company as him, but he didn't know her at all. She even knew that he drove a Mercedes-Benz G-Class. This was no coincidence, it was clearly deliberate. She was waiting for him here, just waiting for him to show up. Recently, he had indeed stood out in the company because he had landed an important project, and he was riding high. This woman had probably seen this timing and, seeing that he was doing well in driving a luxury car. She might have ulterior motives, such as wanting to curry favor. She thought that a few words, flicking her hair and flirting, would make her submit obediently? She was dreaming. Just kidding. He only watched the tartar, hoof trimming, carpet cleaning, old boy, bat repair, blacksmithing competition, and the dismemberment case when brushing and shaking. Not to mention. At this level, there is no way to compare with Ding Xinhui. Sorry, not convenient. Yian directly refused. The woman's smile suddenly froze. She didn't expect that her carefully prepared encounter, and her full belief in her beauty, would result in such a straightforward rejection. She thought she could take the initiative and easily win Yian over. She watched Yian drive off in his Mercedes-Benz, and could only stand there, stamping her foot in anger. After returning to the villa, Yian walked straight to the kitchen, put on an apron, and started to get busy. Compared to before, now that he was cooking for Ding Xinhui, he was also more dedicated and attentive. After spending this period of time together, Ding Xinhui had been very kind to him. She had allowed him to experience a feeling that he had never felt before. Family affection? Love? Friendship? He couldn't say what that feeling was either. But just thinking about Ding Xinhui's absolutely beautiful face, he could feel a trace of warmth flowing in his heart. Ding Xinhui returned home from work and smelled the tantalizing aroma of the food. She went to the kitchen and saw Yian busily preparing dinner. Her mouth unconsciously curled up into a smile. In no time at all, a few dishes with excellent looks, smells and tastes were placed on the table. The two of them ate and chatted. Yian shared the good news that he would be attending the business banquet. Although Ding Xinhui already knew, she pretended to be surprised and praised him repeatedly. Yian was a little embarrassed by her praise. For a while, the atmosphere at the table was relaxed and pleasant. Auntie Lu, the housekeeper, looked on with satisfaction. The young lady and young master are a truly happy couple. She has also seen how the young master has been behaving recently, and she is sure that when the young lady's parents return, they will be very pleased with their son-in-law. After the meal, Ding Xinhui brought a document from the study and handed it to Yian. It is some notes about the Shanghai banquet. You can have a look, so that nothing goes wrong when the time comes. Okay. Yian smiled, took the information, and carefully leafed through it. From time to time, he nodded, silently memorizing some of the important points. After reading the information, Ding Xinhui smiled and said, "By the way, I picked out a tuxedo for you, and I put it in your room. Go and try it on to see if it fits." Yian was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect Ding Xinhui to be more enthusiastic than he was about attending the banquet. She had given him information and picked out a tuxedo. The word helpful wife flashed through his mind. "Idiot, what are you doing? Go try it on, quickly," Ding Xinhui whispered. Yian snapped back to reality, and, feeling a little embarrassed, scratched his head. "Okay, I'll go try it on," he said, and got up and walked to his room. After a short while, Yian walked out wearing the silver-gray tuxedo. The dress fit snugly, outlining Yian's upright figure, and the whole person exuded an extraordinary and handsome air of nobility. Ding Xinhui's eyes went a little wide, and she instantly turned into a little fangirl. Her beautiful eyes were full of different colors, and she couldn't help but blurt out, "Hubby looks really good." After she said that, Ding Xinhui belatedly realized what she had said. Her little face flushed slightly, and she quickly covered her mouth with her hand. Her eyes were full of shyness and remorse. What was she talking about? Why couldn't she hold back and accidentally let her true feelings out? Yian looked at the cute and shy appearance of this older sister in front of him, and he was a little stunned. Then his heart felt a warmth, and his mouth unconsciously lifted. He pretended to be calm, cleared his throat, smiled, and said, "Well, this dress is really good. You must have chosen it with all your heart, otherwise how could I look this good in it?" Upon hearing this, Ding Xinhui slowly lowered her hand that had been covering her mouth, trying hard to calm herself down. She walked up to Yian and circled around him. Last time when she went shopping with Yian, Ding Xinhui had taken Yian's measurements in her heart. And the size of this tuxedo fitted Yian perfectly, without the need for alterations. "It's really good, this tuxedo is practically tailor-made for you. But it seems to be a little wrinkled here." Saying this, she walked up to Yian and gently smoothed out the wrinkles at the collar of the dress with her outstretched hand. Her fingers were slender and soft, and they lightly brushed against Yian's shirt. The soft touch made Yian's heart tremble slightly. Chapter 65, Can You Stop Testing the Cadres? At this moment, the two were very close to each other. So close that Yian could smell the faint fragrance on Ding Xinhui's body. The quiet breath lingered at the tip of his nose, causing his heartbeat to unconsciously quicken a little. Ding Xinhui could almost feel Yian's warm breath falling on her cheek, causing her heart to beat faster and faster. She couldn't help but look up, and their gazes met. Yian's Adam's apple uncontrollably slid up and down a little. Her long, fine eyelashes fluttered, tickling his heart and making his mouth feel a little dry. Ding Xinhui looked into Yian's eyes, which were so close that she could even see her own reflection in them. For a moment, she became a little dazed, as if the world was left with just the two of them. The distance was so close that their breaths mingled together. The atmosphere became more and more delicate. "Miss, young master, the fruit is ready, I'll bring it in for you," Auntie Lu said as she walked into the room carrying a platter of fruit. As soon as she stepped into the room, she looked up and saw the scene in front of her. Yian and Ding Xinhui were very close to each other, and there was still a trace of shyness and excitement on their faces. Auntie Lu understood instantly. She had come at a bad time. She had interrupted the young master and miss. "Oh, I suddenly remembered that I need to pick up my grandmother from school. I didn't see anything, you guys continue." Auntie Lu said, and exited the room, closing the door behind her. Yian? Ding Xinhui? Pick up your grandmother from school? You're the grandmother picking up your grandson. Besides, it's late at night, who would be picking up a ghost? Auntie Lu's hasty arrival and departure added a touch of humor and awkwardness to the original atmosphere in the room. Yian was the first to react, taking a small step back sharply, causing his ears to instantly turn red. His hand unconsciously scratched the back of his head, and his eyes looked elsewhere in a flustered manner. That, Auntie Lu was quite humorous. Ding Xinhui was even more embarrassed, her cheeks like the red evening sky. She hurriedly turned sideways, gently ran her hand through her hair at the side of her ear, trying to hide her embarrassment. Yes, yes. While talking, she also secretly glanced at Yian. Seeing him at a loss for words, a sense of sweetness welled up in her heart, and even her embarrassment faded a little. It was late at night, and the two of them returned to their rooms separately. Ding Xinhui tossed and turned a little in bed, still replaying the scene in her mind. A feeling of regret welled up in her heart. In that kind of atmosphere, if Auntie Lu hadn't shown up, then would they have to? She didn't dare to think any further. It was really embarrassing. Thinking about it made her blush again, and she buried her head in the pillow. Her hot face seemed to be able to warm the pillow. In the next room, Yian also found it difficult to calm down. He lay on the bed with his hands propped behind his head. His mind kept replaying the moments he had spent with Ding Xinhui. In particular, the moment just now when they were so close to each other. Ding Xinhui's big, watery eyes, and her red lips that looked so kissable. That feeling was like an invisible force pulling at him. It made him want to get close to her. Damn it! Can you stop testing the cadres? He couldn't even imagine what would have happened if Auntie Lu hadn't appeared. Next, he was afraid that he would accidentally shoot his gun. Yian rolled over again, looked at the ceiling, took a deep breath, and tried hard to calm down. Just now, he had almost crossed a certain line. But a line is a line. He absolutely must not cross it again so easily. But he was also a young man full of blood and vigor. And he was facing Ding Xinhui, whose looks and charm were comparable to a nuclear weapon. No matter who he was, no one could withstand such a test. Sigh. I'm tired. Destroy me. I don't know how long it took before Yian closed his eyes and fell asleep. The next day, he went to work as usual. Yian was tapping away at the keyboard in his office. Perhaps because of the research he did yesterday, Yian kept thinking about the project he was working on with the old devil. Suddenly, as if struck by lightning, a brilliant idea came to him. He realized that there was actually a lot of room for improvement in the project. Yian's eyes were filled with excitement, and he couldn't wait to stop working on other things he was doing. He looked at the data while quickly recording his thoughts on paper. As the idea deepened, Yian felt more and more that the upgrade plan was highly feasible. So, Yian immediately called Manager Ma and told him his idea. After listening, Manager Ma thought Yian's idea was wonderful, but he couldn't make the decision, so he told Yian to talk to General Manager Lin in person. After Yian got Manager Ma's phone number for Lin Zhenyue, he took a deep breath to calm down his slightly excited mood. Then he dialed Lin Zhenyue's number. On the other side, in Lin Zhenyue's office. At this time, the assistant walked in, holding a document in his hand, respectfully handing it to Lin Zhenyue. President Lin, this is the project plan for the top 10 best ideas selected for this business banquet within the past 3 years, and you need to vote on the ranking. Lin Zhenyue nodded slightly, took the document, and carefully flipped through it. As he read through the outlines of each plan, none of them were very satisfactory to Lin Zhenyue. The only one that caught his eye was Yian's proposal, which he had worked on together with him. After reading it, Lin Zhenyue said without hesitation, "I'll vote for Yian's proposal for first place. It's the best one. Okay, Mr. Lin, I'll arrange to have it recorded and displayed at the banquet." After saying this, he took the document, turned around and left the office. Just then, the phone on the desk rang. Lin Zhenyue picked up the phone and found it was an unfamiliar number. "Hello, who is this?" "Hello, Mr. Lin, this is Yian, the same Yian who previously worked with you on the logistics management system." Lin Zhenyue seemed to be stunned for a moment, and then said, "Oh, it's you, Yian, what do you want?" Yian quickly said, "Mr. Lin, it's like this, I have an idea. I found that this project we have worked on actually has a lot of room for improvement. If we implement this idea, I think it will bring more benefits to both sides." Upon hearing this, Lin Zhenyue's voice showed a hint of interest. Oh? Really? Tell me, what exactly is this idea? Yian organized his thoughts and began to elaborate. Lin Zhenyue listened quietly on the other end of the line, not interrupting Yian's narration. After Yian finished speaking, he pondered for a moment. His voice revealed a hint of admiration and certainty. Yian, your idea is truly brilliant and your insight is unique. He has been in this industry for so many years, and he knows at once. Yian's idea is not just a random patchwork, a fancy solution to take credit. It is solid thinking that comes up with practical solutions. This move cuts to the chase and can take the customer experience up several notches. So, Mr. Lin, do you think it is feasible? Of course, your plan is so brilliant that I will fully support you to go for it boldly. If you encounter any difficulties, just come to me, I will back you up. Yian was a little excited when he heard this. Great, Lin Zong, I will get started right away and ensure that this project upgrade will be a great success. After hanging up the phone, Yian excitedly walked back and forth in the office a few times before sitting back down in his chair. After the project is upgraded, it will greatly enhance my reputation in the industry. I will also be able to further deepen my cooperative relationship with industry leaders like President Lin. This is an important opportunity for my career to take off. After being busy in the office for a while, Yian called a meeting of the project team members. In this way, Yian spent the whole day busy. The next day was the weekend. Today is the day to attend the business banquet. Yian and Ding Xinhui walked out of the house together. You said you weren't going to the banquet? Chapter 66, Wife is the richest person. Yian was full of doubts and stopped in his tracks, looking sideways at Ding Xinhui. Logically speaking, with Ding Xinhui's status in the business world, her connections and prestige, she was perfectly qualified. And she should be one of the focal points of the banquet. Yian also secretly asked his mother-in-law behind his back. Goodness! I didn't know until I looked, and I was shocked when I saw it. The words richest person appeared prominently in the search results. Yian's jaw dropped and his eyes widened. He knew that Ding Xinhui was very rich, but he never imagined that she was the richest person in the country. He thought that the richest person would be a middle-aged man with a sense of distance, busy all day long and with no interest in life. But he never imagined that it would be a beautiful woman like Ding Xinhui, which completely subverted his imagination. In fact, Yian did not know. The Ding Group had originally been under the helm of Ding Xinhui's father and had already made a name for itself in the business world. With deep roots and a vast territory, it was a giant that no one in the industry dared to underestimate. The old man had a tough style and brilliant tactics, leading the group all the way through thick and thin, establishing a firm foothold in many fields and making a fortune. Later, the old man became tired of the cutthroat competition in the business world and wanted to enjoy his retirement. He handed over the reins to Ding Xinhui. In just a few years, the Ding Group, under her management, not only held its own, but even went from strength to strength. Its wealth grew like a snowball, until it became the wealthiest family in the world. Unfortunately, I have to attend an international video conference tonight. Ding Xinhui raised her eyebrows slightly, her eyes betraying a hint of helplessness. She waved her phone at Yian, indicating that she really couldn't cancel the meeting. Due to the time difference, it was hard to coordinate the time on both sides. If Ding Xinhui were to be absent, it would delay important matters for the group. Yian felt a little lost upon hearing this. But he also knew. As the richest man, in such a high position, there were definitely many times when he was not in control of his own actions. After bidding farewell, the two left the villa by car. One went to the Shanghai banquet, and the other went to the company. The address of the banquet was Juxian Manor, the most luxurious and heavily guarded private manor in the city. Yian drove his Mercedes-Benz Grand G slowly closer to Juxian Manor, and the imposing gates could be seen from afar. The manor was surrounded by a tall fence of green plants, only faintly revealing the outline of the brilliantly lit buildings inside. After entering the manor, the huge parking lot was already filled with many luxury cars. Yian found an empty space, parked the car steadily, opened the door, and walked down to the banquet hall. Yian? As he was about to reach the door, a slightly surprised voice sounded from behind him. Yian turned his head and looked, and it was a young man in a black suit. Soon, his appearance coincided with a scene in his memory. It was Li Xueqian's cheating partner, Xiao Wenjun. At this thought, his brows furrowed slightly, wondering why the other person had stopped him. Xiao Wenjun approached, confirming that the person in front of him was really Ian, and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Why was Ian here? Could it be that he had come to the banquet? No way, absolutely not. He was a nobody with no money and no background, so what right did he have to come? Just because he had landed the old devil's project? That was even less likely. It was just a project, but he was just lucky. He can't possibly think that winning a small project like this will get him into the upper-class circles like his own. The more Xiao Wenjun thought about it, the more outrageous he felt it was, and an expression of mocking amusement involuntarily appeared on his face. Oh, it really is you, I thought I was mistaken. You're not trying to get into the party, are you? I advise you to leave quickly, this is no place for you. Yian's heart rose up in displeasure at Xiao Wenjun's strange words. What I'm doing here is none of your business, so you'd better mind your own business. After saying that, Yian planned to bypass Xiao Wenjun and walk straight to the banquet hall. Yian's indifferent attitude made Xiao Wenjun feel a bit embarrassed. He once again thought of his father Xiao Hongxiu and his uncle Xiao Qidong, who had repeatedly told him not to provoke Yian. But what right does Yian have? Who the hell is he? He's just someone who's had a bit of luck, and he dares to speak to me like that. When he thought about this, Xiao Wenjun took a step forward and once again blocked Yian's path. Yian, I'm just trying to warn you. Do you know who's coming to the banquet today? They're all well-known figures in the business world, people of status and position. You won't even be able to get in the door, and it's fine if you just embarrass yourself, but don't affect the company's reputation. Upon hearing this, Yian's face hung a mocking sneer. Oh? How do you know I won't be able to get in? Xiao Wenjun was a little pleased with Yian's words. It was normal for a lowly character like Yian not to understand. As a high-class character, he naturally knew that you needed an invitation to get in. Of course, apart from that. Who let his uncle Xiao Qidong be one of the organizers? It would be a matter of a word for him to get in. You need an invitation to get in. Xiao Wenjun crossed his arms and slightly raised his chin. Why, you don't know? He looked Yian up and down as he said this. It was only then that he noticed that Yian was wearing a suit that was tasteful, understated, and luxurious. The fabric of the suit looked extraordinary, and it fit Yian's figure perfectly, while also highlighting a kind of noble temperament. In comparison, he suddenly felt that the suit he was wearing was not as good and was much inferior. Yian is a poor kid, where did he get the money to buy such a nice suit? He must have rented it just to look good. Thinking about this, he despises Yian even more. You rented this suit, didn't you? Suits like this are expensive to rent. I'm just thinking of you, so you should hurry up and go return the suit. Don't let it happen that you can't even pay the rental fee. Chapter 67 Yian, no invitation? Xiao Wenjun's voice suddenly rose a few decibels, which was a little harsh at the entrance to the banquet. It attracted the attention of many guests who were entering the banquet one after another. The attention of the crowd, like a spotlight, instantly focused on Yian and Xiao Wenjun. The originally smooth rhythm of entering the venue came to a halt for a moment due to this sudden commotion. Xiao Wenjun did it on purpose. He wanted Yian to lose face in front of everyone. If it weren't for Yian, how would he have been belittled and scolded by his father? How would he have lost face in front of Li Shueqian? Yian thought that by wearing a rented tuxedo, he could muddle through and enter the party? He didn't even weigh his own abilities. There are so many people watching now. If Yian is humiliated and turned away, he will become the laughingstock of everyone. At this thought, Xiao Wenjun's eyes flashed with a hint of smugness, and the corners of his mouth curled up in derision. Just then, a faint but clear murmur came from the crowd. Hey, that gentleman's tuxedo looks familiar. A middle-aged woman in a gorgeous cheongsam with exquisite makeup slightly furrowed her brow. She looked at Yian several times, as if trying to remember something. Then she tapped her companion's arm and said, I remember now, I saw it before at that top-notch custom-made dress shop. At the time, I was envious and wanted to buy it for my husband. But when I asked the price, I was shocked, it was too expensive, so I gave up. Later I heard that it was sold, and I didn't expect to see it on this gentleman today. Her companion, who was also dressed in jewelry, her eyes lit up at the news. They also stared curiously at Yian's tuxedo and agreed. It really is. This tuxedo looks top-notch no matter how you look at it, and it compliments him, showing off his style. It doesn't look like a cheap rental. This gentleman is no simple person. Although the two men's discussions were not loud, they spread quietly through the crowd like wings. Many people who knew their stuff also spoke up in agreement. The way the crowd looked at Yi Yan's eyes. The original contempt brought on by Xiao Wenjun's words gradually faded, replaced by a little curiosity and envy. These discussions naturally also reached Xiao Wenjun's ears. His face began to look unnatural. His chin, which had originally been slightly raised, also seemed to have been hit hard with a punch, and it unconsciously drooped a little. He never expected that he would want to use this to humiliate Yi Yan. But instead, it was like lifting a stone to drop it on his own feet, allowing Yi Yan to steal the limelight in front of everyone. Yi Yan looked composed, his gaze calmly sweeping over Xiao Wenjun, and a faint arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. The smile revealed a hint of composure, more like a silent retort. You really have a vivid imagination, but don't bother yourself with my affairs. Yi Yan's words, coupled with the strange looks directed at him, made Xiao Wenjun feel like a thorn in his back, making him feel uncomfortable. He just wanted to escape as soon as possible from this place of controversy that had brought him such shame. He could only glare fiercely at Yi Yan and then turn around and hurry towards the door of the banquet. However, when he reached the door, he was about to stride in. The security guard was quick-eyed and quick-handed, and with a single-arm motion, he blocked his way. Sir, please show me your invitation. The security guard's tone was polite, but it was unmistakable. Xiao Wenjun froze for a moment, his face frozen. He didn't have an invitation at all, so how could he get one? There were so many people watching. He didn't have an invitation, but was able to get in because of his uncle's connections. This kind of thing, if it came to light, would indeed be a bit disgraceful and easy to be criticized. The most important thing was that the arrogance and vanity in his heart were at work. He didn't want to lose face in front of Yi Yan, no matter what. Just then, Yi Yan walked slowly at a leisurely pace, exuding an air of calm confidence. Xiao Wenjun's heart stirred when he saw Yi Yan approaching, and an idea came to mind in an instant. He forced himself to calm down and put on an arrogant expression again. He waved his chin at the security guard and pretended to be impatient. Forget about my invitation for now, I'll give it to you later, just take care of him for now. As he spoke, Xiao Wenjun gave Yi Yan a contemptuous glance. I naturally have to keep a close eye on my uncle's party for him, so don't let just anyone in. His tone was full of condescending arrogance. It was as if he were the master of the party at that moment, with the power to decide who could and could not enter. In his eyes, Yi Yan was just a small character with no background and not much ability. He was not qualified to enter the party, let alone produce an invitation. This is the perfect opportunity to humiliate Yi Yan, so that he will lose face in front of everyone and leave in disgrace. This will not only vent his anger at having just been upstaged by Yi Yan, but also show everyone his status, so that everyone knows that not just anyone can enter this banquet. And he, Xiao Wenjun, is the one who is qualified to make all the noise here. Yi Yan listened to Xiao Wenjun's words and only raised his eyebrows slightly. His expression remained calm as water, completely unruffled by Xiao Wenjun's provocation. His gaze lightly swept over Xiao Wenjun, with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. Xiao Wenjun's actions were nothing more than a conspicuous show in his eyes. As ridiculous as a child who was being unreasonable. Yi Yan stood still, unruffled. In the eyes of the crowd, it looked as if Yi Yan really didn't have an invitation and was too ashamed to go forward. The people around him seemed to have been ignited by the fire of gossip, and the sound of their discussions gradually grew louder. He can't really not have an invitation, can he? Xiao Wenjun, I've heard that even if he doesn't have an invitation, he can at least rely on his family status, so maybe he'll be able to get in later. Who is this young man? I haven't seen him before. If he doesn't have an invitation, he's just here to take advantage of the party. Yes, in previous years, there were quite a few people who tried to sneak in to network and take advantage of the buzz. Upon hearing you say this, it does seem a bit suspicious. Although that suit looks quite high-end, who knows if it was borrowed just to make up the appearance. Yes, if he really doesn't have an invitation and still insists on barging in, that would be too embarrassing. Chapter 68 Yi Yan has a backer? The guests around looked back and forth at Yi Yan. These looks were like they wanted to see through Yi Yan. As Xiao Wenjun listened to these discussions, he became more and more pleased. He was truly a genius, and this trick was truly wonderful. As long as Yi Yan could not produce an invitation, then in the eyes of the crowd, he would be completely reduced to a laughingstock. Not only had he suppressed Yi Yan's arrogance, he had also elevated his own status. Xiao Wenjun looked at Yi Yan, who was standing still, and showed no sign of producing the invitation. The smug look in his eyes grew stronger. His guess was correct. Yan must have not received an invitation and could not produce one. He had just been putting on an act at the door, but now, under his pressure, he had revealed his true colors. Xiao Wenjun snorted. "Oomph, I told you, Yan, you're in no position to come to this party, and you think you can get away with it? Now why don't you produce the invitation? You don't have one, do you? You don't?" The more Xiao Wenjun spoke, the more confident he became, and the more he enjoyed himself. "I see that you just want to come to the party to network, but don't you know your place? You don't even deserve to be in the same room as us important people? This is really laughable." Xiao Wenjun's voice grew louder and louder, and his harsh scolding voice stood out in the banquet hall. It attracted the surrounding guests, who gathered in a small circle and discussed it. This made Xiao Wenjun even more certain that Yan would make a fool of himself in front of everyone and become the topic of conversation after dinner. He could use this opportunity to become famous and let everyone know that Xiao Wenjun was not someone to be trifled with. Anyone who dares to go against him will end up as miserable as Yan. Just then, a steady sound of footsteps was heard, and everyone subconsciously glanced sideways. They saw Xiao Qidong slowly walking with long strides, exuding an air of majesty with every move. It was obvious that he had been in high positions for a long time and was someone who controlled the situation. The secretary by his side was holding Wenjun in her hands, her eyes alert as she followed Xiao Qidong's every step. "Look, Xiao Qidong, Wenjun's uncle, is here. This is a formidable figure, the undisputed master of the business world, who can't stand any nonsense. Yes, this young man Yan is in for it, he might even be banned from the entire industry." "That's right. Causing trouble at the entrance to the banquet hall is against the rules. Xiao Qidong values rules and face above all else, so he definitely won't let the young man go lightly." Xiao Wenjun immediately put away his arrogance when he saw Xiao Qidong appear. With a smile on his face, he quickly went up to Xiao Qidong and said fawningly, "Uncle, you've finally arrived." He then gave Yan, who was not far away, a fierce glare, as if he were complaining to his uncle. "Uncle, this Yan was not invited to the banquet and is trying to force his way in. He's causing a scene and breaking the rules of the banquet, and he's also damaging our reputation. Hurry up and send someone to get rid of Yan, before he dirties the place." After saying this, he exaggeratedly wrinkled his nose. As if Yan were something unclean, his face full of disgust and aversion. The guests around looked back and forth between Yan, Xiao Wenjun, and Xiao Qidong. This Xiao Wenjun is really good at bullying people. He just couldn't get in himself, but now he's acting like a bully with a bully. But Xiao Qidong's temper, maybe he really will listen to Xiao Wenjun. Even if Yan has an invitation, I'm afraid it won't end well. Xiao Wenjun's attention was entirely on Yan, and he didn't notice at all. Xiao Qidong was currently wearing a gloomy expression, and he was extremely displeased inside. He had seen from afar just now that Xiao Wenjun was yelling at Yan and jumping up and down, acting like a spoiled child. Xiao Qidong's sharp gaze pierced Xiao Wenjun like a knife, and his voice was cold. "You idiot, have you forgotten everything I've told you?" Xiao Wenjun's flattering smile froze instantly. He thought that it was because he had gotten a little carried away just now that he was scolded by his uncle. His body trembled slightly, and he subconsciously shrunk his neck. "Uncle, I was just trying to uphold the rules of the banquet because he was acting so unbecoming. He was pretending to be important even though he didn't have an invitation, and I was angry." At this moment, Xiao Wenjun had no foundation at all, and he was completely without his previous arrogance. Xiao Qidong snorted, "Maintaining rules? You usually act recklessly and do whatever you want, and today you caused such an embarrassment in front of everyone, and you still have the face to mention rules. I usually tell you to act calmly, be careful with your words, and don't start trouble for no reason, but you just ignore me?" Xiao Qidong looked at Xiao Wenjun, who was at a loss for words after being scolded by him, and his heart was full of anger at the uselessness of his efforts. He had only yesterday repeatedly instructed someone to warn everyone in the family not to provoke Yan. Yan had behind him a major figure like Ding Xinhui, who could make the business world tremble with just a stamp of her foot. The Xiao family had fought hard in the complex business world, and although their foundation was strong, they would never dare offend Ding Xinhui. They had no idea that Xiao Wenjun would take his words as nonsense. And he made such a ridiculous scene in front of everyone, practically trampling the Xiao family's face into the mud. Although Xiao Qidong was full of indignation at the moment, he also knew that the situation needed to be properly cleaned up at this moment, and that the situation could not get out of control. So, he took a deep breath, and his face instantly changed to a warm and friendly expression. He strode towards Yan, extending his hand. His face was full of a sincere smile, and his voice was hearty and enthusiastic. Mr. Yi, I have long admired your name. I am really sorry about today's scene. It's all my fault for not disciplining my juniors strictly, and I have caused you to be aggrieved. I hope you can forgive me. As he spoke, his gaze was fixed firmly on Yian, conveying a sense of apology and goodwill. That posture was completely devoid of the previous business magnate's aloofness, and instead resembled that of an old friend apologizing sincerely. Xiao Wenjun? Everyone? His face changed, faster than flipping through a book. The guests looked at each other, and they could all see disbelief in each other's eyes. Damn, who is he? How does he have a bigger background than Xiao Wenjun? Xiao Qidong is a figure who turns the tides of the business world and speaks with absolute authority. Usually, everyone is in awe of him and is careful, and I've never seen him be so polite to a young man. Yes, judging from the situation, the backing behind Yian must be so formidable that it can make Xiao Qidong bow and scrape like this. Yes, just now Xiao Wenjun was still arrogant and shouting, confident that Yian would be embarrassed, but now the situation has taken a sudden turn for the worse. Xiao Qidong's face changed faster than the weather, and Yian's background is probably even more formidable than we imagined. And Xiao Wenjun, who was standing nearby, was completely dumbfounded. He had originally thought that Yian would be suppressed by his uncle's influence. However, he never expected his uncle to be so eager to please Yian. He simply couldn't figure out why things had taken such a 180-degree turn. Chapter 69, The Appearance of the Old Devil. Just as Xiao Wenjun had not yet recovered from his shock, Yian's expression remained calm and composed, revealing a polite smile in response. He extended his hand and shook Xiao Qidong's hand, neither humble nor arrogant. President Xiao has overstated the matter. It was just a misunderstanding, nothing to speak of. I know that President Xiao has always valued family traditions and rules. Today's incident was just a minor incident, and I'm sure it's not what you want to see. Yian's words not only gave Xiao Qidong an excuse to back down, but also subtly pointed out his understanding of his previous intentions to rein him in. It was as if he had used a small force to shift a heavy object, and the awkward atmosphere was easily diffused. Upon hearing this, Xiao Qidong let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Yian had an extraordinary temperament, otherwise he wouldn't know how to fix the situation in front of him. He leaned slightly to the side, made a gesture of invitation, and beamed with a smile. Mr. Yi, please come inside. Just then, a voice full of energy and a touch of majesty sounded. Who said Yian wasn't qualified to enter the banquet? Lin Zhenyue, the old devil, strode out of the conference hall. He had short black and white hair and deep, sharp eyes. His stern face had firm lines and he looked vigorous. When he didn't smile, he exuded a sense of pressure that made people afraid to approach him. He is truly a fearsome old devil in the business world. Someone had gone to inform Lin Zhenyue of the commotion at the entrance of the banquet hall. Upon hearing the news, Lin Zhenyue immediately put down what he was doing and hurried over. He had his hands behind his back and an obvious look of displeasure in his eyes. Because he had previously read Yian's profile, although they had never met, he recognized Yian at first glance. Yian was a rare talent that he valued. Moreover, he had previously promised Xiao Wei that he would take good care of Yian at the banquet. If Yian suffered any injustice, the little girl would be saddened. Just thinking about Xiao Wei's dejected appearance made Lin Zhenyue feel heartbroken. Therefore, he would never allow such a thing to happen. He walked straight up to Yian, first looking him up and down to make sure he hadn't sustained any substantial injuries. Then his eyebrows furrowed slightly, and his cold gaze swept the room. Who was so rude to my guest that he had to be thrown out? Should I throw the old man out too? Xiao Qidong's heart skipped a beat at Lin Zhenyue's angry words, and a storm of thoughts instantly raged in his head. He was well aware of Lin Zhenyue's status and prestige in the business world. No one would dare to provoke such a ruthless character lightly. Who exactly is Yian? I thought that Ding Xinhui alone was enough to make him wary, but I never expected Lin Zhenyue to value him so highly. It seems that Yian's power far exceeds my expectations. If I cannot properly handle this matter today and let Lin Zhenyue take his anger out on the Xiao family, the consequences will be unimaginable. You have to understand that Lin Zhenyue and Ding Xinhui's father have a significant relationship. The family has been working hard in the business world for many years, and although its foundation is strong, it absolutely cannot withstand the impact of joining forces with Lin Zhenyue and Ding Xinhui as enemies. Now Lin Zhenyue's anger must be calmed first. In any case, Yian cannot be offended again. Even if it means compromising, the situation must be stabilized first. Thinking about this, Xiao Qidong hurriedly smiled broadly and took a step forward. Leaning slightly forward, his attitude was one of respect and humility. Mr. Lin, what are you talking about? Mr. Yan is truly a rare talent, and I have always admired him. It is my honor that he was invited to this banquet today. I was hoping to get closer to Mr. Yi and have a good chat, so how could I have behaved in an impolite manner? It was all my incompetent nephew's fault, he was the one who acted recklessly. I have already given him a good scolding, I hope you can let it go. As he spoke, he secretly glanced at Lin Zhenyue's expression with a pounding heart. The scene before them caused the people around them to be even more shocked, their jaws nearly dropping to the ground. They stared with wide eyes, exchanging incredulous glances with one another. It was as if they had heard something unbelievable. My goodness, what's going on? Not only did Xiao Qidong treat Yan courteously, but now even the old devil Lin Zhenyue is protecting him and speaking up for him. Not only that, but he's practically treating Yan like a treasure. It seems that Yan's background is not ordinary at all, and we really underestimated him. Yes, I have never seen such a person before, and he is able to be valued so highly by these two business tycoons. How powerful a backing does Yan have? Perhaps he himself has extraordinary abilities. We must pay more attention to him in the future. Xiao Wenjun on the side was completely dumbfounded at the moment. He stood there blankly, like a wooden man, his mind a blank. He couldn't figure it out. He had wanted to take advantage of the banquet to humiliate Yan, but it had turned out like this. Not only had his uncle fawned over Yan, even Lin Zhenyue, who was usually stern and awe-inspiring, had come out in support of Yan. It was all far beyond his imagination. At that moment, Lin Zhenyue snorted, "You should figure out your nephew's account yourself. If I hadn't arrived in time today, wouldn't Yan have suffered for no reason? Your Xiao family is also a well-known family in the business world, but why are you so ineffective at disciplining your younger generation?" Xiao Qidong didn't dare to argue back, his voice trembling slightly. Mr. Lin, you are right to lecture me. It is all because I have been negligent in my daily supervision that this rebellious son has caused such a big mess. I will go back and discipline him properly, to give Mr. Yi an explanation. Lin Zhenyue narrowed his eyes slightly, his expression still full of dissatisfaction. Xiao Wenjun really went too far today, daring to treat Yan like that. If he hadn't arrived in time, who knows how much humiliation Yan would have had to endure. The Xiao family usually seems to be well behaved, but I never imagined they would raise such an inconsiderate young person. Fortunately, Yan did not appear to have sustained any substantial harm. Xiao Qidong was also quite sensible at this point, quickly coming up to apologize and make his position clear. This banquet was originally an occasion for colleagues in the business community to gather and exchange ideas, and it was not possible to let this incident prevent it from going ahead. Since Yan was fine for the moment, and the other party had admitted their mistake, they would let it go for now. But he won't forget this so easily. If the Xiao family continues to be so inconsiderate in the future and continues to allow their juniors to provoke Yan, then he will definitely not show mercy. At that time, they will definitely know the consequences of offending him and Yan. Thinking this, he turned to look at Yan. His face immediately softened, and his voice became gentle. Yi, are you okay? Chapter 70, Now you know you were wrong? It's too late. Yan slightly leaned forward, with a gentle smile on his face. Thank you, Mr. Lin, for your concern. I'm fine, and I haven't been affected in any substantial way. Upon hearing this, Lin Zhenyue nodded. Fortunately, it seemed that Yan's mood had not been affected. If Yan had been wronged, and given his little girl's temper, I'm afraid it would have caused a lot of trouble. He patted Yan on the shoulder lightly. That's good, that's good. Xiao Qidong listened on the side, and the more he listened, the more uncomfortable he felt. Originally a good banquet, was so a mess by Xiao Wenjun, not only offended Yan, but also almost angered Lin Zhenyue. The consequences are really unimaginable. He glared secretly at Xiao Wenjun, who was still standing there stupidly, and his heart was full of anger at the iron will that could not be achieved. Xiao Wenjun also came back to his senses at this time. Hearing Lin Zhenyue's conversation with Yan, he felt even more remorseful. He never expected it. He wanted to take the opportunity to humiliate Yan, but instead he and the Xiao family were pushed into such an embarrassing and dangerous situation. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something to salvage the situation. But something seemed to be stuck in his throat, and he couldn't spit out a single word for a long time. Lin Zhenyue seemed to sense the gazes and thoughts of those around him. He cleared his throat and raised his voice. All right, don't all gather around, this banquet today is a rare opportunity to get together, so go and enjoy yourselves. After saying this, he put his arm around Yian's shoulders and walked towards the banquet hall. Yian stood upright, his stride unhurried. Walking side by side with Lin Zhenyue, his aura was not lost at all. The crowd cast either awestruck, curious, or speculative glances at them. They automatically made a path for them, as if they were the central focus of the banquet. Xiao Wenjun watched Lin Zhenyue and Yian grow further and further apart, his heart filled with anxiety. He had completely lost the arrogance he had just now, and was left with a face full of fear and helplessness. He really didn't want to be rejected so easily. In his opinion, if he could just get into the party, he might still have a chance to save some face and make up for the mistake he had made. So, with a stiff upper lip, he moved cautiously, trying to sneak in behind them. Xiao Qidong was so perceptive that he saw through Xiao Wenjun's intentions at once. He was furious, his face turning pale, his eyes wide with anger. He gave Xiao Wenjun a fierce glare, as if he could devour him with his eyes. Then, he quickly gave the security guard a wink. The security guard understood what he meant and quickly walked up to block Xiao Wenjun's way. Seeing the security guard block his way, Xiao Wenjun felt a wave of despair. If he could enter the banquet, there would be a chance to save the situation. But if he gets turned away, if this gets out, how can he hold his head high and strut around with pride in the future? Those who usually fawn over him might even laugh at him behind his back. Thinking about this, he looked at Xiao Qidong with a face full of fear and pleading. He looked at Xiao Qidong, his lips trembling. Uncle, please give me another chance. I know I was wrong, I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so impulsive and provoked Yian. I was just confused and overwhelmed by jealousy. Please let me in, seeing as I'm usually quite obedient. I promise I'll behave once I'm inside and won't cause any trouble. Please, uncle. Xiao Qidong looked at Xiao Wenjun's terrified and pleading face and sneered inwardly. Usually Xiao Wenjun is very arrogant because of the Xiao family name. Today, he has even disgraced the Xiao family's name at the entrance to this banquet. He saw how arrogant and domineering Xiao Wenjun was just now. He thought he could use his power to suppress others, but instead, he kicked against the iron and made the situation so embarrassing. If he let Xiao Wenjun off so easily and took him in, he might cause even more trouble. He had to teach him a lesson today, so he would let Xiao Wenjun stay here. He would humiliate him properly so that he would learn his lesson. He wanted Xiao Wenjun to know the consequences of acting arrogantly and provoking people at will. In the future, he should behave himself and not provoke people he shouldn't just because he's a little hot-tempered, and not get the whole family into trouble. Usually, it's no big deal for families to support these idle young men. But if they don't know when to stop and keep doing things that harm the family's interests, that's absolutely not okay. He must be taught a harsh lesson today so that he understands completely. Thinking about this, Xiao Qidong's face grew even more stern, and he was not moved at all by Xiao Wenjun's pleas. He said coldly, "Now you know you were wrong? Too late. Look at the mess you've made today, you've disgraced the Xiao family and almost caused the family great trouble. Now go back and reflect on your mistakes, and think about what I told you before. If you can't figure it out, then you can forget about attending any more external banquets, and you don't need to attend any family gatherings either." Upon hearing this, Xiao Wenjun felt as if he had been struck by lightning, and his entire body instantly froze. The blood drained from his face, leaving him as pale as paper. His eyes were filled with despair and helplessness, and his body trembled slightly. Uncle. He wanted to argue a little more, but something seemed to have choked his throat, and he couldn't get a complete sentence out. He knew that this time, his uncle was really angry, and he was completely hopeless. And what his uncle said was like a death sentence. How was he going to get along in this circle in the future? He would be barred from attending external banquets and excluded from family gatherings. This meant that he would completely lose the opportunity to appear in various occasions. He would not be able to get to know important people in the business world, and he would not be able to contribute to the family business to prove himself. He knew that in their circle of businessmen, various banquets were not just about eating and drinking. It was the perfect opportunity to cultivate relationships, expand one's network, and make an appearance to show that he was still relevant. Many major business partnerships were initially hammered out over a good laugh. But now, with this move, Uncle Xiao has undoubtedly announced to the outside world that he has been marginalized by the family, and that the family business has nothing to do with him from now on. Those who used to look at his Xiao family background and flatter him are now afraid to avoid him. What status will he have in the future? I'm afraid he will only become the butt of everyone's jokes and be pointed at behind his back. They will say that he has fallen into this situation because he is reckless and ignorant of his own abilities. The more Xiao Wenjun thought about it, the more disheartened he felt. The despair in his eyes grew stronger, and his body trembled even more. Chapter 71 Liang XI Jang steals technology. The others around him were shocked to hear Xiao Qidong's words. This is too harsh, isn't this a form of house arrest? Yes, for these business families, preventing the younger generation from participating in various banquets and activities is really cutting off their path to development in the business world. That's right. Just think about it. Now that Xiao Wenjun has been restricted in this way, it's equivalent to telling him that he can never amount to anything in the business world in the future. It seems that Xiao Qidong is really angry and wants to teach Xiao Wenjun a lesson he'll never forget. Xiao Wenjun is full of remorse at the moment, but there's nothing he can do. He can only watch as the banquet hall is lit up with brilliant lights. The laughter and joy coming from inside seemed to be ruthlessly mocking his downfall and embarrassment. Xiao Wenjun was distraught, and the look on his face as he tried to argue fell into Xiao Qidong's eyes. Xiao Qidong's brows furrowed even deeper, and his eyes were full of impatience. He looked at the security guards beside him and said sternly, "What are you still doing here? Didn't you hear what I said? Take him back and let him reflect on his actions in private. Don't continue to make a fool of yourself here." The security guards hurriedly responded, stepping forward to each side and taking hold of Xiao Wenjun's arms. Xiao Wenjun subconsciously struggled a few times, but he no longer had the arrogance he usually had. His feeble resistance was futile under the strong grip of the security guards. His eyes were full of fear and unwillingness, and he muttered in his mouth, "Uncle, I'm sorry, please don't do this." His voice grew weaker and weaker, almost to the point of choking. The crowd looked at him with strange expressions. There was shock, schadenfreude, and pity. Some guests who had been dissatisfied with Xiao Wenjun's arrogant behavior now had a slightly raised corner of their mouths, revealing an imperceptible sneer. A few people who had a little friendship with Xiao Wenjun just shook their heads helplessly, not daring to go forward to intercede for him at this time. Xiao Wenjun was dragged by the security guards out the door in full view of everyone. His feet left two messy marks on the polished floor, looking extremely disheveled. As he passed by the whispering crowd, Wenjun clearly heard a few comments in hushed voices, but they were especially harsh. Usually, they bullied people with the Xiao family's influence, but now they've hit a brick wall. Yes, Xiao Wenjun has really fallen hard this time, and I'm afraid he won't have a good time from now on. Each word felt like a sharp needle piercing his heart, making him wish he could find a crack to hide in. Xiao Qidong, on the other hand, took a deep breath and tried to calm down. He put on a polite smile and turned towards the banquet hall. This farce had to end as soon as possible. He had to mingle and socialize to save some face for the Xiao family, and not let this unexpected storm completely ruin the banquet. As for Xiao Wenjun, he was full of anger at this moment. He just hoped that this period of time of reflection would allow his incompetent nephew to completely calm down. Understand what is acceptable and what is not. Yan and Lin Zhenyue had already entered the banquet hall. The hall was brightly lit, with glasses and cups clinking. Elites and celebrities from all walks of life were either in small groups talking quietly, or raising their glasses in an elegant toast. Yan and Lin Zhenyue walked side by side, with a steady and composed pace. They walked straight towards the center of the banquet hall. Along the way, the business elites and celebrities, who were originally whispering to each other, glanced at the two of them. They cast either awestruck or curious glances. They consciously stopped talking and leaned slightly to the side to make way for them. Lin Zhenyue leaned slightly to the side with a kind smile on his face. Today is a gathering of leaders from all walks of life. I'll introduce you to a few of them, and in the future, we might be able to help each other in the business world. Saying this, he led Yan towards a middle-aged man with an elegant demeanor. The other side. Yan's company building. Today is the weekend, and the company is exceptionally quiet at the moment. Only a few employees who are working overtime are still busy with their work. Yan has gone to attend that important business banquet, which is undoubtedly the perfect opportunity for Liang XI Jang to take action. Liang XI Jang arrived at the company building early. Looking at the familiar building, a sinister gleam flashed in his eyes. He took a deep breath to calm himself down, then walked towards the entrance of the building. The security guard at the entrance was sitting idly, and when he saw Liang XI Jang approaching, he raised his eyes slightly, Liang XI Jang immediately put on a seemingly natural smile on his face and said, "Brother, I'm an employee of the company upstairs. I left in a hurry a few days ago after working overtime, and I forgot something at the company. I'm here to pick it up, so please be accommodating." The security guard looked him over and, seeing that it was a familiar face, waved him in. "Sure, just be quick." Liang XI Jang nodded quickly. "Sure, thanks, I'll be quick." After saying that, he hurriedly entered the building and took the elevator straight to Yian's floor. Along the way, his heart beat uncontrollably, both nervous and excited. His mind kept conjuring up the scene after he got Yian's computer data. Thinking that Yian would soon be disgraced, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but rise slightly, revealing a twisted smile. When he arrived at the door to Yian's office, Liang XI Jang took another deep breath to steady his emotions. He gently pushed the door open and found that it wasn't locked. He was secretly pleased and thought to himself, "This is truly heaven helping me." He cautiously entered the office and quickly closed the door behind him. He stood with his back against the door for a while, listening carefully for any sounds, and made sure that no one was coming. Then his gaze fell directly on the computer on Yian's desk. He slowly walked over and sat in the chair. He first looked around warily to make sure that there was nothing unusual, and then carefully pressed the power button on the computer. His hands trembled slightly as he placed them on the keyboard. He knew that the next step was the crucial one. If he could only open the computer and copy the information on it, Yian would be in big trouble. He swallowed hard and began to try to enter the password. Each time he entered a password, his heart sank. He tried several common passwords, but the screen always displayed that they were incorrect. Fortunately, he had prepared himself in advance and had found out Yian's birthday. He then started trying the numbers according to Yian's birthday. After finally entering it multiple times, the computer booted up smoothly and entered the desktop. Liang XI Jang let out a long sigh of relief, and once again looked around to make sure there was nothing unusual. He quickly took out the mobile hard drive he had prepared from his pocket and inserted it into the computer. Then he began frantically searching through the folders. Chapter 72, Wife Teased. Project plans, customer data, reports, and other important information Yian had uploaded to the company's cloud, which required a password and access permissions. All that was left on the computer were some dispensable files and the financial risk early warning system that Yian was working on. This was precisely Liang XI Jang's target this time. The text message sent from an unknown number had explained the general content of the system. Although Liang XI Jang didn't really know anything, he had been at the company for so long. Haven't you seen a pig run if you've never eaten pork? He quickly found the file where the risk warning system was located. Liang XI Jang's eyes lit up, and he couldn't wait to select the financial risk warning system file and copy it to the mobile hard drive. His fingers clicked rapidly on the mouse, and his eyes stared intently at the progress bar on the computer screen as it was being copied. A smug and twisted arc formed at the corner of his mouth. Yian. Don't you usually have it all your way? Don't you usually charm everyone in the company by winning a few projects? Your time of misfortune is coming soon. When he gets this financial risk warning system and hands it over as instructed, you'll see how smug you'll feel. By then, you'll be the target of everyone in the industry, a rat on the street. Everything you have now will be gone. As he thought about this, he couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. His laughter sounded particularly eerie in the quiet office. Yian had caused his uncle Liang Wuda to not only lose his job, but also go to prison. Today was Yian's retribution. He wanted Yian to taste the taste of disgrace. He wanted Yian to know that offending him Liang XI Jang was not something that could be easily forgiven. The more Liang XI Jang thought about it, the more excited and gratified he felt. He watched the progress bar of the copy advance a little bit at a time, feeling both nervous and excited. Once this information reached someone else's hands, no matter what they did with it, it would have nothing to do with him. As long as he got a generous reward, he could leave this hellhole in style. He would never have to look over someone's shoulder again, and he wouldn't have to worry about the fake academic credentials being exposed. Yian usually pretends to be a decent person. Once he hands this over, who in the industry will still trust and hire Yian? From now on, Yian will disappear from the industry. However, Liang XI Jang does not know. The precious copy he is making now is the first-generation version that Yian has already verified to have huge loopholes and therefore passed. It is a defective product that Yian has long abandoned. After the copy is complete, Liang XI Jang impatiently unplugs the mobile hard drive and holds it in his hand like a treasure. He rushes out of the office, not forgetting to look back to make sure no one is following. When he went downstairs, his steps were a little excited. His mind was full of the generous reward he was about to receive, as well as the miserable state of Yi Yan's downfall. Meanwhile, at the banquet, Yi Yan was mingling with celebrities from all walks of life, his every move showing his calm confidence. Lin Zhenyue occasionally shot him approving glances and eagerly introduced Yi Yan to various bigwigs. Yi, this is a senior technical expert in our industry who has developed several hit projects. You should get to know each other better, you might come up with some new ideas. Yi smiled modestly, bowed slightly, and shook hands with the technical expert. I've heard a lot about you, and I've heard about your outstanding achievements in technology research and development. It's an honor to meet you today, and I hope to learn from you in the future. The technical expert also smiled in return, his eyes showing his appreciation for Yi Yan. Mr. Yi is being modest. I've also heard about your recent outstanding performance in the industry. You're a young talent, and I'm sure our exchanges will definitely spark many ideas. After a few words of small talk, the two naturally began to talk about some of the cutting-edge technologies in the industry and the challenges they face. Yi Yan, with his solid professional knowledge and keen insight, occasionally put forward unique opinions during the exchange. This attracted the repeated nods of the technical expert, and the appreciation in his eyes grew stronger and stronger. And that was it. Lin Zhenyue successively introduced Yi Yan to several important figures in the industry. Later, Lin Zhenyue received a phone call and had to deal with some matters, so he temporarily left the banquet hall. Soon after a few drinks, a group of rich kids gathered together. Somehow the conversation turned to Ding Xinhui. Hey, why didn't Ding Xinhui come today? In the past, she never missed a single one of these parties. A man wearing a flashy suit and covered in rings started the conversation. A rich second generation named Godongshi immediately chimed in, with a flirtatious smile on his lips. Ding Xinhui is famously cold and aloof, and her family is rich and powerful. If you can get her, you'll have at least 50 years less struggle. She's hard to get, but if you can really get her, you'll be able to walk sideways in this circle in the future. After saying that, he raised his eyebrows, which attracted a burst of laughter from the people around him. Yi Yanjing was talking with an older colleague about industry insights in a low voice. These harsh words entered his ears without missing a word. His brows furrowed slightly, and an instant wave of displeasure washed over him. Although he and Ding Xinhui were only in a marriage of convenience, after spending time together during this period of time, Ding Xinhui had already gained weight in his heart. Therefore, he could not tolerate others teasing her so recklessly. Yi Yan walked towards Godongshi and the others, his eyes cold. Gentlemen, there is a limit to joking. Ms. Ding has always had an excellent reputation in the industry and is outstanding in her abilities. It is inappropriate for you to tease her like this in front of so many colleagues. Godongshi and the others turned their heads when they heard the sound. First, they looked Yi Yan up and down, and saw that he was young and unfamiliar. Then the contempt on their faces became more and more obvious. Godongshi snorted and tilted his head. Yo, where did this young fool come from? What's he pretending to be a gentleman for? What does Ding Xinhui have to do with you? You're in no position to give orders. Are you trying to climb the social ladder and act as a protector of flowers? There was another round of laughter from the people around him, with one voice after another echoing. Upon hearing this, Yi Yan's fists unconsciously clenched. Ding Xinhui of course had a relationship with him. They were even husband and wife. But his marriage to Ding Xinhui was only a formality. If he just went ahead and revealed this relationship, it might cause a huge wave in this circle and trigger a series of bad chain reactions. By then, not only might he get caught in a whirlpool of trouble, but Ding Xinhui might also be implicated. He himself can be ignored, but he doesn't want to implicate Ding Xinhui. Seeing Yi Yan not say anything, Godongshi and the others stopped paying attention to Yi Yan and continued to recklessly flirt with Ding Xinhui. Chapter 73 You heartless son of a bitch. Yi Yan saw this and felt a fire in his heart. He wanted to rush up to them and punch them right away. Let them know what to say and what not to say. But he also knew that he must not act impulsively at this moment. This banquet was carefully prepared by several big shots such as Lin Zhenyue. If there is trouble here, it is a blatant disrespect to them. Lin Zhenyue has always been quite considerate of him and has a pivotal position in this circle. If he embarrasses Lin Zhenyue out of impulse, then he will have a hard time establishing himself in the business world in the future. Moreover, he will be pointed at behind his back by his peers, saying that he doesn't know the rules and has no sense of propriety. But just watching them continue to flirt with Ding Xinhui so wantonly, Yi Yan's heart is really suffocating. Even Yi Yan himself didn't realize that although Ding Xinhui was in a marriage of convenience with him, after spending time together over this period of time, her intelligence, kindness, and the various ways she had looked after him had all made Yi Yan feel differently about her. She had long ago occupied an important place in Yi Yan's heart. Therefore, now listening to these people treat Ding Xinhui as an object they could tease at will, Yi Yan felt like every word was like a knife, cutting fiercely into his heart. Although he couldn't do anything, Yi Yan didn't intend to let it go. He had to find a way to teach this guy a lesson, so that he would know that there was a price to pay for speaking out of turn. Just as Yi Yan was thinking this, he caught a glimpse of a red spot on the slightly open collar of Go Dongshi's shirt. It seemed that this playboy must have messed around a lot in private. Yi Yan's mind stirred, and he instantly came up with a plan. He looked away without saying a word. While no one was looking, he walked over to a quieter corner and called his friend Xiao Yuan. The call was quickly connected, and Yi Yan spoke in a low voice. "Xiao Yuan, it's me, Yi Yan. Didn't you mention before that you had worked as an extra and knew some actors? I've run into an emergency here and urgently need your help to find an actress with excellent acting skills. I'll pay her 1,000 yuan an hour, so money is not a problem." Xiao Yuan, upon hearing Yi Yan's anxious and serious tone, did not ask any more questions and readily agreed. "Okay, good brother. Don't worry, I happen to know a few reliable people, and I promise to find you someone with superb acting skills, so just wait." After hanging up the phone, Yi Yan returned to the banquet hall. At this time, Go Dongshi's gang were still flirtatiously teasing Ding Xinhui. The foul language drifted into Yi Yan's ears, causing him to clench his fists. However, he knew that a good show was waiting for these guys, so he held back for the time being. Within half an hour, Xiao Yuan sent a message saying that they had arrived at the entrance to the banquet hall. Yi Yan looked up and glanced towards the door without showing any emotion. He saw a young woman dressed in rags, with a pretty face, being stopped by the security guard at the door. Her eyes revealed just the right amount of panic and anger, and it was obvious that she was prepared. Then the woman coughed lightly. Then she suddenly raised her voice and cried out. "Go Dongshi, you heartless son of a bitch! You've ruined me! You fooled around on the outside and got that dirty disease. And you passed it on to me. Now what am I supposed to do?" In the glamorous city of Shanghai, behind the prosperity, there are also many unspeakable gray industries. In front of a piece of abandoned building, it was dark as ink, with only the faint glimmer of the city's neon lights in the distance. The wind whistled through the ruins, making a sound like a ghost crying. Tian Shaoshan couldn't help but shiver, pulling her jacket tighter around her. "Shueqian, let's not go back, this place looks creepy." An hour earlier, Liang XI Jang sent the file of the financial risk early warning system to an anonymous email address. Then he received a reward of 100,000 yuan from an unknown number. Immediately afterwards, this unknown number sent Li Shueqian an address. Li Shueqian hurried over, but she didn't expect it to be such a shabby place. Fortunately, she brought Tian Shaosan with her to boost her courage. Li Shueqian's brows were knitted together, and her gaze fixed on the dark, abandoned building. She was also afraid of the eerie environment. But the thought of her company, which was now in a precarious situation, made the pressure feel like a 1,000-pound weight. It left her no time to worry about such things. The core technology of the system in Yi Yan's hands was the last straw to save the company. If they can't get the technology, the company's cash flow will dry up, the project will stall, and within a few months, the company will have to close down for good. Li Shueqian grits her teeth. "We have to go. We have no other way out." As they delve deeper into the abandoned building, the pungent smell of mold hits them in the face. The occasional sound of rats scurrying about can make both of their hearts race. After turning a few dark corners, they see that a man is already waiting for them. "Are you the buyers?" Li Shueqian took a deep breath and spoke first. "Yes, we are the buyers. Can't we do this online? Why do we have to come to this kind of place?" Li Shueqian really looked down on this kind of person from the bottom of her heart. What era is this, and you still have to engage in this kind of underhanded offline transaction? Choosing to meet in such a creepy unfinished building, it's like being a thief. It's obvious that they are doing something that walks the line of the gray area. People like this probably do a lot of cheating and fraud in their spare time. If it weren't for the fact that the company was really desperate, she would not want to deal with people like this. The rules of the underworld are that you pay with one hand and receive with the other. Follow me. After saying this, he didn't wait for a response from the two and turned and strode deeper into the abandoned building. Li Shuoqian and Tian Shaoshan glanced at each other, and they could see tension and helplessness in each other's eyes. They then followed. The two of them never imagined that this run-down place would actually have an elevator. When the elevator door opened again, the sight in front of them made Li Shuoqian and Tian Shaoshan's eyes widen in shock. It was resplendent with gold and brilliant lights that almost dazzled their eyes. This was actually a large-scale gambling den, bustling with activity and filled with the sound of people. It was like two completely different worlds from the dead silence of the abandoned building above. They continued to follow the man to the third basement level. With each level, the extravagant atmosphere became more and more intense. When they reached the third basement level, the ceiling was extremely high and the decoration was extremely luxurious. The man led them to a box on the second floor and knocked on the door. A low voice came from inside. Come in. The man pushed open the door and motioned for Li Shuoqian and Tian Shaoshan to go in. The two took a deep breath and stepped into the box with a stiff upper lip. Chapter 74, She's Slandering Me. On the other side, at the Jushin Manor, Yian looked at the actress who had appeared and pretended not to notice. Since this Godongshi couldn't keep her mouth shut and was full of foul language, he would let her taste the feeling of being publicly slandered. Feel the sense of being humiliated in front of everyone. This is a high-end banquet, and everyone here is a well-known and respectable figure in the business world. Now someone is causing trouble. Yian wants to see how Godongshi will end up. Although what he is doing may not be considered a bright and honorable means, dealing with arrogant and domineering people like Godongshi, who have no bottom line, is also his own fault. After all, Yian could not stand by and watch Ding Xinhui being so recklessly teased by them. Even if they could not reveal their marital relationship for the time being, she had to defend her reputation in this way. She wanted these people to know that they could not say whatever they wanted, and that there were always people in the world who would correct their bad habits. The actress's outburst was like a bolt from the blue. It instantly attracted everyone's attention. The originally lively conversation came to an abrupt end. Everyone turned their heads and looked towards the entrance of the hall. Yian stood in the banquet hall, watching the actress screaming and yelling outside. This acting was truly superb. Every expression and every line was just right. Oscar owes you a statuette. This $1,000 is well spent. Seeing this commotion, Godongshi is afraid that he will be overwhelmed. But before Yian could enjoy the moment for long, his brow furrowed slightly. The actress was shouting outside recklessly, causing unnecessary commotion. Moreover, there were quite a few reporters outside the door, and if this got out, the reputation of the party would be ruined. His original intention was to teach Godongshi a lesson, but he didn't want to ruin the whole party. So he hurriedly walked quickly towards the door. When he arrived at the door, Yian put on a slightly helpless but sincere expression on his face. Madam, please calm down. I understand that you are aggrieved, but making a scene here is not a good idea. Let's go inside and talk. I promise to give you a fair deal, is that okay? Xiao Yuan had previously sent Yian's photo to the actress. She recognized Yian in front of her at a glance as her sugar daddy. Since daddy had spoken, she naturally had to act according to Yian's instructions. She immediately understood, wiped away non-existent tears, and followed Yian into the banquet hall. Once inside the hall, the actress quickly recognized Godongshi based on the photo Yian had sent to Xiao Yuan. She instantly got into character and fixed her gaze on Godongshi. A few steps later, she rushed up to him, pointed her finger at his nose, and began to scold. Godongshi, you heartless scoundrel in human clothing. Oh, you look like a decent person, but behind closed doors you're up to no good. Tell me, how many women have you seduced? I was so stupid to believe your lies, and you filled my heart and eyes. As she spoke, she squeezed a small piece of onion that she had secretly hidden in her hand. The pungent smell instantly rushed to her eyes, and tears rolled down her face. Anyone who saw her looked at her pitifully. Her voice was full of sorrow and soft with tears. I gave you everything I had. You, on the other hand, caught that filthy disease and dumped me without a word. When I went to the hospital to check, I'll be ruined for the rest of my life because of you. You only cared about having a good time, and you didn't care about whether I lived or died. As she spoke, she wiped away the tears that kept welling up in her eyes with her hand, and her eyes became more and more red and swollen. The actress's tearful accusation instantly set off a bomb in the entire banquet hall. The surrounding guests were originally just watching with a mind to gawk. But now they were all caught up in the situation by this highly infectious performance. They all showed expressions of either shock or contempt on their faces. Several ladies couldn't help but whisper to each other, sighing softly, "This girl looks so pitiful. If she really meets such a heartless man, she'll suffer so much." Most of the men frowned, looking at Go Dongxi with ill-intentioned gazes and shaking their heads. They thought to themselves, Go Dongxi is arrogant in his actions every day, but I never imagined that his private life was in such a mess. Go Dongxi was confused by the actress's sudden accusation and stood there dumbfounded. He soon came back to his senses and angrily jumped up and yelled, You're talking nonsense. I don't even know you. Where did you come from to slander me here with your nonsense?" He pointed at the actress and raised his voice as he looked at the crowd. She's slandering me, she's slandering me." On hearing this, the actress became even more agitated. She took a few steps forward, her hands reaching out towards Go Dongxi, as if she were going to rip his clothes off. Go Dongxi felt a chill run down his spine when he saw the actress pounce on him, and he knew something was wrong. He subconsciously took a few steps back, clenching his hands around his collar. "Don't touch me, you're crazy." After a bit of a tussle, Dongxi's collar was ripped off, and several buttons at the neckline came undone. A red spot was exposed to everyone's view. "Look everyone." The actress, with tears in her eyes, pointed at Go Dongxi's neck. "This is the evidence, and you still deny it. How sick are you?" Before anyone could react, the actress violently pulled the collar slightly open, revealing a carefully painted red spot on her neck. It looked very similar to the red spot faintly visible beneath Go Dongxi's collar. The actress also cried more and more miserably. Wah. I am an innocent girl, but because I believed his lies, I have ended up in this situation. How can I live the rest of my life?" This scene once again made the entire banquet hall boil. Everyone hurriedly covered their mouths and noses with their hands, disgusted. Like avoiding the plague, they all took a few steps back together, distancing themselves from Go Dongxi. Usually, I see Go Dongxi acting bossy, but I never imagined that his private life was so unkempt. This is great, causing such a big scandal. I feel like my eyes are not clean anymore, and I have to stay away from him in the future. Yes, who would have thought that this would happen at such a high-end banquet? I'm afraid that he really has caught some kind of disease, so he can't infect us. The group of people who had just been laughing and joking with Go Dongxi were also very frightened at the moment, and they were full of embarrassment. This is over, hanging out with him, others may not know how to look at us, we have to quickly distance ourselves. Go Dongxi watched as everyone distanced themselves from him, listening to the harsh and mean comments. His heart was already in a mess. He was truly panicking. Usually, relying on his family background, he has been wantonly amorous and has indeed picked up quite a few birds. He himself can't quite remember who they were and what ridiculous things he did. At the moment, looking at this strange yet righteous actress in front of him, he racked his brain but couldn't think of when he had had an entanglement with her. However, the red spot on his neck was like a glaring piece of evidence of his guilt, leaving him unable to refute it. Chapter 75, Look at What You've Done. On the other side, the lights in the box were ambiguous. The air was filled with the smell of cigarettes mixed with high-end alcohol. A man in his 30s was sitting on a leather sofa. He was known in the underworld as Knife, just as his name suggested. A scar ran diagonally from his eye to his chin, looking a little hideous in the light. It was him who contacted Liang XI Jang and Li Xueqian. He looked up and surveyed Li Xueqian and Tian Shaoshan with his gaze. He casually pushed an exquisite metal box on the table over to them and spoke in a hoarse voice. "The goods are here, check them." Li Xueqian went up and opened the box, inside of which lay quietly a small hard drive. She knew that what was inside was most likely the core technology of the system that could save the company. She took the laptop from Tian Shaoshan and started to operate it with her fingers. Tian Shaosan, who was standing nearby, also came over, not daring to breathe, and stared intently at the data jumping on the screen. A few minutes passed, and Li Xueqian's tense shoulders slowly relaxed, and a trace of imperceptible surprise flashed in her eyes. She turned her head and nodded slightly to Tian Shaosan, indicating that the item was fine. Then she looked up at the scarred man and said, "Okay, the item looks real." Tian Shaosan then placed the black suitcase in her hands on the coffee table. When she opened it, stacks of red banknotes were revealed. "Here's the money, go ahead and count it." The scarred man narrowed his eyes slightly, and after confirming that the amount was correct, He closed the suitcase and pushed it into the corner of the sofa. Miss Li, you really are a straightforward person, doing business with you is worry-free. Li Xueqian's brow furrowed, and her heart sank. She had clearly never revealed her name. She had been extremely cautious when she came here to make the deal, and she had not said a superfluous word throughout. How could this scarred man accurately call her Miss Li? The scarred man seemed to have read her mind, and spoke slowly. Miss Li, don't be so nervous. If we don't have any channels of information and just hang around underground in this devilish city, we will be eaten up long ago. Don't worry, I will definitely keep your secret. If there's any more business like this in the future, remember to come to me. Li Xueqian never wanted to get involved in this kind of underhanded business again. But she forced a smile, I hope so. The deal was done, and Li Xueqian, clutching the hard drive tightly, walked out of the box with Tian Shaoshan. The moment they stepped out of the elevator and back on the ground, Li Xueqian felt her heart pounding like thunder. She felt both the joy of successfully obtaining the key technology and the fear of the thrilling journey. Tian Shaoshan followed behind her, also full of relief, muttering, "It's finally over. I never want to come back to this hellhole again." Li Xueqian couldn't hold back her excitement and whispered, "Shaoshan, our company is saved. This technology is real, and the project can continue." Tian Shaoshan nodded repeatedly, her eyes shining. "Yes, Xueqian, you've been under a lot of pressure these past 2 days, so you can finally relax." The scarred man, carrying a suitcase full of banknotes, pushed open a secret door in the box with a smile on his face and walked into the compartment. Although the compartment was not large, it was extremely luxuriously furnished. There was a thick Persian carpet and several expensive oil paintings hung on the walls. At the table, a middle-aged man in his 40s was leisurely sipping a glass of red wine. This man was Jiang San, the #1 underworld figure in the Magic City. He had a chilling nickname, the Lawless Madman. He was not tall, but exuded a fierce energy from within, and his eyes were very sharp. "Brother San, I've closed another big deal." Meanwhile, a banquet in the business world. Go Dongxi's face was red with embarrassment, and he hurriedly raised his hands to fix his collar, which had been pulled open, in an attempt to hide the red spot. But his hands were shaking so badly that he could not button up the few remaining buttons, and he looked extremely embarrassed. "Everyone, don't listen to her nonsense, I don't even know her." Go Dongxi looked around at the crowd, his eyes full of pleading, hoping that someone would step forward to speak up for him and help him out of this situation. But everyone just stood by and watched, some even rolled their eyes, their contempt even more pronounced. A middle-aged man snorted. "Go Dongxi, where's that arrogance you usually show? Now you know fear? The girl is crying so miserably, and the evidence is right in front of you. Who would believe your empty words of slander?" Several other ladies nearby nodded in agreement, murmuring, "Yes, look at the way this girl is pouring out her true feelings, it doesn't look like she's faking. Go Dongxi must have done something wrong and is trying to deny it." The actress listened to Go Dongxi's sophistry and cried even louder. She simply collapsed on the ground, covering her face with her hands and shaking her shoulders. She cried as she pretended to rummage through her bag. In fact, there was no medical certificate, but she was just pretending to look for one to add credibility. Go Dongxi saw this and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. His lips trembled, but he was at a loss for words. He knew in his heart that this storm was already out of his control. The usual friends who fawned after him and called him brother were all hiding far away, and none of them dared to come forward to help. I really didn't do these things, you can't convict me just based on her word alone." Go Dongxi's voice became hoarse with a touch of desperation. At this moment, Yian stood aside, observing the situation without saying a word. His original intention was to teach Go Dongxi a harsh lesson, to dampen his enthusiasm, and make him pay for his indiscretion. But the situation seemed to have gotten a bit out of hand. Seeing that everyone was taking out their phones, he was afraid that they were going to take photos and videos. If this got out, the reputation of this banquet would be completely ruined, and Lin Zhenyue's hard work in hosting the banquet would be destroyed. Yian made a snap decision and walked a few steps forward, full of apologies. "Madam, calm down. It's no good just carrying on like this. Let's go somewhere quiet and I'll make sure someone gives you justice." The actress looked up, tearfully, and recognized Yian. Thinking that he was her benefactor, she stopped crying. Under Yian's guidance, she got up and followed him to a small room at the side of the hall. Just as he had settled the actress, Yian had not yet had time to let out a sigh of relief. He saw Lin Zhenyue rushing over with Xiao Qidong and another middle-aged man. These three were the hosts of the banquet. Someone had already explained the whole thing to them. Lin Zhenyue looked serious, scanning the surroundings with his gaze. He saw that Yian had already settled the actress. He walked quickly towards Yian, nodded slightly, and spoke first. Yi, thanks to your quick thinking, you were able to move this to the smaller room in time. If we had let everyone gather in the lobby to take pictures and discuss this, the carefully planned banquet would have been ruined, and all our hard work would have been for nothing. Xiao Qidong nodded in agreement, and patted Yian on the shoulder. Yes, Mr. Yi, you handled the situation very well, and you didn't let the situation deteriorate further. Otherwise, tomorrow's business headlines will be full of scandals from our banquet. Yian froze for a moment, then smiled modestly. Mr. Lin, you are overstating it, this is what I should do. Lin Zhenyue nodded slightly. His gaze shifted from Yian and turned to the disheveled Godongshi beside him, and his eyes instantly turned cold. Seeing this, Godongshi subconsciously shivered, and his already weak legs shook even more. Godongshi, look at the mess you've made. Chapter 76, Chop off the boy's hands and feet. The scarred man beamed as he placed the suitcase on the table like he was showing off his treasures. Third brother slightly raised his eyes and glanced at the suitcase. You're not a bad guy, so you didn't run into a tough one this time? He said, setting down the wine glass in his hand, and nonchalantly looking through the bills in the suitcase. Hey, how difficult can it be? They're just two little girls. They looked pretty nervous, but they got the job done quickly and without any problems. The scarred man arrogantly pulled a chair over, sat down with a thump, poured himself a glass of wine, and took a big gulp. As soon as he finished drinking, he began to boast about his own merits and how he had completed the deal. However, when Jiang San heard the name of Yi Yan's company, Jiang San frowned, as the name of the company sounded familiar. He took out his mobile phone and quickly swiped his finger across the screen to search for keywords. In no time, the relevant information popped up. San Ji's face instantly changed, and a flash of panic crossed his eyes. San-gu, what's wrong? The scarred man sensed something was wrong and put down his glass, asking in confusion. Do you know who is behind this company? It was just recently acquired by Ding Xinhui. Who is Ding Xinhui? She is a major tycoon who can make the business world of Shanghai tremble with just a single step. Her businesses span all industries, and her influence is intertwined with everyone else's. We can't afford to mess with her. The scarred man's eyes widened, and the smile on his face froze instantly. Brother Zhang, I don't know. Zhang's eyebrows were knitted together, and his gaze was full of anger. With a bang, he slammed his phone down on the table, staring the scarred man. He pointed his finger at the scarred man and scolded. I told you to read the news more often and learn from it, not to just know fighting and killing all day long. You've really screwed up this time. If you just used your brain a little and paid attention, you wouldn't have got yourself into such big trouble. Jiang San was so furious that he wanted to split the scarred man in two. He knew that if you didn't keep your eyes open in this evil city, sooner or later you'd lose your life. Could Ding Xinhui be messed with casually? The power behind her was beyond his imagination, and many pairs of eyes in the political and business worlds were watching her. A small action could set off a storm. He made a living by relying on some gray methods and usually acted low-key. It was just to avoid the sharp edges of these bigwigs, but now he had walked right into it. Scarface man's forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat, which he wiped away with his hand. He asked anxiously. What should we do now, Brother San? The deal is done, the money and goods have been exchanged, and it's too late to back out. Jiang San stood up and paced back and forth in the small compartment. He put his hands behind his back and his mind raced. He knew that as long as Ding Xinhui moved her fingers, she could crush a small person like him who made a living through underhanded means. This time, the scarred man under his command has stepped into this mess, literally pushing everyone to the brink. No, he can't just sit there and wait to die. The most urgent task now is to quickly apologize and show weakness. Perhaps he can still beg for a little understanding from Ding Xinhui. If Ding Xinhui comes looking for him in person, then it will be trouble. After a moment, he stopped walking and yelled at the door. Guys! Chop off the boy's hands and feet. He's good for nothing and a burden. As soon as he finished speaking, several burly men with fierce expressions emerged from the shadows of the compartment. Without saying a word, they stepped forward, picked up the scarred man and dragged him out. After the scarred man was dragged out of the compartment, his miserable screams could still be faintly heard. Jiang San frowned impatiently, took a deep breath, and suppressed the anger in his heart. He reached out and, with trembling hands, pulled out his phone, looked up Secretary Wang's number, and dialed. The moment the phone connected, Jiang San's tone was clearly marked with tension and unease. Secretary Wang, this is Jiang San. I have something extremely urgent that I would like to trouble you to pass on. On the other side of the line, there was a banquet. Lin Zhenyue's voice was low, but it carried an unmistakable air of authority. What kind of occasion is this? A banquet where the elite of the business world gather, and you make such an unbearable scandal, disgracing everyone and nearly ruining the reputation of this banquet. Godongshi broke out in cold sweat, trying to defend himself, but when he opened his mouth, he didn't know how to explain. Lin Zhenyue took out his phone and quickly swiped his finger across the screen to quickly find Godongshi's family elder's number. After dialing, he continued in a serious tone. Go's father, this is Lin Zhenyue. Your young man Godongshi is really something. He made a complete mess of the business banquet I hosted. A voice of anxious inquiry came faintly from the other end of the line. Lin Zhenyue briefly recounted what had happened, and added at the end. Mr. Go, we are all respectable people who have always placed importance on family values. I know you spoil your grandchildren, but this time, you must give everyone an explanation and discipline him properly, so that he doesn't act so recklessly again. There was a moment of silence on Mr. Go's end, as he was clearly taken aback by these words. Then he let out a long sigh and said, Lin, I've failed to discipline him properly and caused you so much trouble. Don't worry, when Dongshi returns, I will definitely teach him a lesson and let him know the gravity of the situation. After hanging up the phone, Lin Zhenyue walked back with a gloomy expression. Looking at Xiao Qidong and Xiao Qidong, he said in a deep voice. In my opinion, in the future, we must establish some hard and fast rules in our circle. People like Godongshi, who do not know the gravity of the situation and disrupt important occasions, must no longer be tolerated. From now on, ban him. He is not allowed to attend any gatherings or business negotiations in our circle, so as to avoid any further trouble. Thanks to user 21884541 for the reward of 2 milk teas. I'm set for the day's meals. QAQ. Chapter 77, How is my sister's acting? Xiao Qidong snorted coldly. Indeed, it should be like this. This brat usually acts domineeringly because of his family background. Today, he caused such a scene, and being banned is considered light punishment. If he still doesn't repent in the future, he will have no way out in the business world. He should learn a long and hard lesson for his reckless actions and for tarnishing the family name. As Godongshi listened to their verdict, his face went from red to white, then white to blue, and his body swayed unsteadily. He knew in his heart. Lin Zhenyue and the others could cause 1,000 ripples with just a stomp of their feet in the business world. Their joint effort to ostracize him was equivalent to severing all his connections and opportunities in this circle. From now on, all the glamorous social gatherings, the lucrative business partnerships, will be cut off from him. Despair overwhelmed him like a tidal wave, and his eyes reddened involuntarily, but he dared not make a sound. This scene caused the guests around him to murmur again. Gee, I never thought that Godongshi, who always acts so respectable, is actually so ridiculous behind the scenes. Yes, now he's done it, completely ruining his reputation and almost putting an end to our banquet. We must stay away from people like him in the future, or we might get dragged down with him one day. Look at the sorry state he's in, trying to argue. The evidence is right in front of us, as if we're all stupid. Lin Zong and the others have decided to ban him, and that's serious. That's right. In the future, Go's business will probably be affected, too. After all, who in the circle would dare to cooperate with such a time bomb? Yes, this time, even if Go's father wants to protect him, he will have to think twice. Oh dear, we even got involved in a few shady deals with Godongshi before. Now what a mess. People will no doubt look at us in a strange way. We have to distance ourselves from him as soon as possible. If I had known he was so unreliable, I shouldn't have got so close to him. Now I'm afraid that if my family elders find out, they'll scold me for making the wrong friends. You're right. Godongshi is completely finished. We have to be careful in the future and avoid hanging out with people like him, so as not to ruin our own prospects. The sound of everyone's gossiping pierced Godongshi like daggers and arrows. He stood there, isolated and helpless. As he listened to the harsh words, his body trembled even more violently. His last shred of self-respect vanished in an instant. Lin Zhenyue frowned and waved at the security guards beside him. Get Godongxi out of here, don't let him continue to disgrace himself here and disturb everyone's enjoyment. At the order, the burly security guards quickly stepped forward and took hold of Godongxi's arms from the left and right. Godongxi struggled a few times subconsciously, but he was no match for the strong and fit security guards. He could only let them drag him towards the door of the banquet hall. Lin. President Lin, please give me another chance. I know I was wrong. Godongxi shouted at Lin Zhenyue in a desperate voice with a hint of crying. But Lin Zhenyue pretended not to hear, his expression still cold. Godongxi looked around at the crowd, his eyes full of pleading, hoping that someone would stand up for him. However, all he received in return was indifference and disgust. Yian stood to the side, watching Godongxi's miserable appearance, and his heart was finally a little more at ease. This farce had not only exposed his relationship with Ding Xinhui, but also subtly taught Godongxi a harsh lesson, making him pay the price for his indiscretion. Lin Zhenyue turned to Yian and his expression softened a lot. Yi, you handled this situation cleverly today. Next, appease that lady, the banquet still needs to go on as usual, don't let this little interruption spoil everyone's mood. If there's anything else in the future, let me know in time. Okay, Mr. Lin, don't worry. Yian quickly agreed, and after Lin Zhenyue and the other two turned and left, he turned and walked towards the small room. Yian pushed open the door to the small room. The actress inside was a little restless. When she saw Yian come in, she immediately got up. So, what do you think? How was my performance? The actress had a playful and pleased expression on her face, and her eyes were full of expectation. It was as if she were a student waiting for the teacher to mark her work. Yian smiled and gave a soft round of applause. Your performance was superb. I was watching from the side and almost believed it myself. The lines and the expression were truly superb. It was truly their loss that Oscar didn't give you the award. Yian spoke from the heart. In today's scene, without some real talent, it would have been hard to hold the audience's attention. The actress beamed with pleasure at the praise, lifting a hand to gently cover the corner of her mouth. You're so sweet, little brother, you really know how to flatter people. You didn't see Godongxi's embarrassed expression, her face was so green with anger that she couldn't even speak properly. She said, crossing her arms, a smile of satisfaction still remaining on her face. Yian pulled over a chair next to her, invited the actress to sit down, and sat down himself. His expression became a little more serious. Thank you very much tonight, but I need to ask you to keep this confidential. The actress put away her smile, nodded slightly, and said, Don't worry, I understand. In our line of work, keeping client confidentiality is basic professionalism. I will never say a word to anyone. She winked and added, If there's anything like this again, you can count on me. Yian nodded slightly, took out his phone from his pocket, and transferred the money. With a crisp sound of the money being credited, he looked up and said, This is 1,000 yuan, the agreed upon payment. Thank you for your help tonight. The actress glanced at her phone and her eyes lit up. Wow, Mr. Yi, you're too kind. It's my pleasure to help you. Just let me know if you need anything in the future. Then Yian got up, walked to the door of the room, called a security guard over, and whispered a few words. He turned to the actress and said, I've asked the security guard to take you out the back door quietly, so you don't run into any unnecessary trouble. Okay. The actress replied, gathered her small bag, and followed the security guard towards the back door. Before leaving, she didn't forget to wave her little hand towards Yian. Yian stood still, looking in the direction the actress left, slightly lost in thought. Although the storm had subsided, it had also made him more vigilant. In the future, when navigating the complex business world and social circles, every move must be precise. The slightest mistake could cause even greater chaos. Yian began to admire Ding Xinhui a little when he thought about it. As the richest person, Ding Xinhui must be at the forefront of the business world. She faces open and hidden weapons, and countless thorny problems. But she has remained the richest person for so many years, running her huge business empire with great efficiency. I don't know how she has managed to persevere all these years. Yian steadied her nerves, straightened her clothes, and put on a composed smile again. She turned around and once again blended into the party. Chapter 78, The Thoughts of Ding Xinhui. On the other side. Jiang San's voice trembled slightly. Secretary Wang, as you know, I make a living underground in this devilish city, always doing my part, and I never dare to provoke the big shots. But today, one of my lackadaisical subordinates sold the technical data linking Ding Dong's industry to a deal. Secretary Wang's brows furrowed slightly on hearing this. What happened? Jiang San told the whole story. He paused and glanced outside the cubicle, where a few drops of blood were still drying on the floor. Secretary Wang, I have severely punished the kid and chopped off his hands and feet. Thinking of apologizing to Mr. Ding and expressing my sincerity, I hope Mr. Ding can let him off. Do you think this arrangement is appropriate? I would be very grateful if you could say a few kind words in front of Mr. Ding. After listening to this, Wang felt a pang of anxiety. This Li Xueqian really is bold as brass. She stole technology and even stole her boss's wife. She must hurry and tell Ding Xinhui about this. So Wang said, "You'll have to fend for yourself," and hung up. Inside the conference room, Ding Xinhui was in the middle of an international video conference, speaking fluent English into the screen. Wang knocked on the door and softly entered. Ding Xinhui raised her eyes slightly and saw it was Secretary Wang, so she nodded without saying a word, indicating that she should wait a moment. However, Secretary Wang came directly to Ding Xinhui's side, leaned over and whispered in her ear. This is about Boss Fu's matter, and it cannot wait. Ding Xinhui's brows furrowed slightly. This meeting was very important and could not be interrupted. Moreover, Secretary Wang was not normally someone who did not know the gravity of the situation. When Secretary Wang mentioned Yian in his report, Ding Xinhui's brow furrowed even deeper. She slightly raised her hand to indicate that Secretary Wang should wait. Then she looked at the screen and hastily ended the meeting. What's going on? How did Yian get involved? Tell me in detail. Ding Dong, here's what happened. After listening, Ding Xinhui's eyes completely turned cold, and her whole body was like a refrigerator. The temperature in the meeting room dropped several degrees, making Wang Shu's secretary can't help but shiver. Ding Xinhui's small hands unconsciously clenched the armrests of the chair. This Jiang San, after all is said and done, is just a small thug stirring up trouble in the underworld of the Magic City, and is not worth worrying about. But the culprit is still this person named Li Xueqian, who dared to steal the system technology that Yian worked so hard to create. Yian's position in her heart is indescribable. He is her taboo, and no one can touch him. Her big, clear eyes narrowed slightly. The image of having dinner with Yian last night came to mind. At the time, Yian had enthusiastically mentioned the system to her and sought her advice. She had listened carefully and gained a lot of understanding about the system. It turned out that Li Xueqian thought she had obtained the key technology that could save the company. However, she did not know that it was just a half-finished product that Yian had abandoned and which had huge loopholes. Let her hold on to it for now. With Yian's abilities, he would definitely be able to create something more complete and more powerful. The most important thing now was to collect evidence and keep track of their every move. As long as there was any sign of Li Xueqian trying to use the technology to cause trouble, she can make Li Xueqian lose everything and pay a heavy price. Secretary Wang, go and find out about this. He, Jiang San, wants to apologize, right? Ask him to cooperate. In addition, pay close attention to the movements at Li Xueqian's company. Secretary Wang hurriedly replied, Yes, Ding Dong, I'll go arrange it right now and make sure I don't miss any clues. As she spoke, she turned to leave the meeting room. Wait. Ding Xinhui called out again to stop her. Also, notify the legal department to be prepared for all kinds of situations. Once legal action is required, there must be no delay. We must block their escape from all sides, so that they know that anyone who dares to touch me, Ding Xinhui, will never get away with it. Understood, Chairman Ding, I will convey your instructions immediately. Secretary Wang nodded, walked quickly out of the meeting room, and gently closed the door. Ding Xinhui got up, went to the window, looked at the tall buildings in the distance, and her thoughts began to wander. When she first returned to China, she heard the news that Yian was already dating Li Xueqian. At that moment, she felt like her heart was being painfully grasped by an invisible hand. In a corner that Yian could not see. She tried hard to pull out a smile and silently wished Yian well in her heart. But behind that smile was endless loneliness and bitterness. She had selfishly hoped that one day Yian and Li Xueqian would part for various reasons. Even if there was only the faintest hope, she would hold on to it tightly and never let go. However, when she learned the news that Yian and Li Xueqian were getting married, It was like a bolt from the blue, shattering the last bit of hope in her heart. She fell into a dark abyss, and everything around her became bleak and lifeless. The emotions of sadness and loss overwhelmed her, leaving her barely able to breathe. She thought, Yian and I were ultimately not meant to be, and I can only bury this feeling deep in my heart and let it slowly become buried with the passage of time. But fate always seems to play tricks on people. Unexpectedly, Li Shueqian did something so foolish as to cheat on Yian, causing Yian to break up with her. At that moment, Ding Xinhui's heart was filled with mixed emotions. She felt both pain at the hurt Yian had suffered and a faint flame of hope igniting within her. She knew that her chance might have quietly arrived. She couldn't help but feel a little gratitude in her heart for Li Shueqian's blindness. She was grateful that she had missed out on such a good person as Yian, giving her the possibility of getting close to Yian again and protecting him. Now, Li Shueqian has once again recklessly provoked Yian, trying to take away the technology he worked so hard to create. This has undoubtedly once again touched Ding Xinhui's bottom line. Her eyes gradually became determined, and the hands that had been clenched at her side slowly loosened. Yian, I won't let her hurt you anymore. Ding Xinhui murmured softly. She lifted her hand slightly and placed it gently on the window glass, as if Yian's figure was on it. In the past, she could only silently watch Yian be by someone else's side. That feeling was like having countless needles poking her heart, but she could do nothing about it. But now it's different. She will never let anyone hurt Yian again. No matter who dares to touch him. She will do her best to protect him and prevent him from being hurt even a little bit more. Chapter 79. Yian is being arrogant? The business banquet continued in an orderly manner. In a short while, Yian's gaze was attracted to the Creative Solutions ranking board set up on one side of the hall. The board displayed a variety of brilliant creative solutions proposed by industry elites, attracting many people to gather around and discuss. Yian was curious and thought that he could take a look and learn from them. Maybe he could find inspiration for his own financial risk warning system, so he walked over. As soon as he got close, he heard three people next to him enthusiastically discussing the rankings on the list. Hey, look at the idea ranked first, it's really amazing. The idea is very innovative, and the grasp of the market is also very accurate. I really don't know which great god came up with it. I heard that this is the solution to the Old Devil project. The Old Devil is notorious for being picky in the industry. No matter how many elite teams go with carefully prepared solutions, they are all returned with a bunch of problems. I didn't expect that this time someone could actually do it on their own and make a solution that satisfied him. That's amazing. The other fat man agreed, his eyes full of appreciation. One of the short men also had shining eyes and nodded repeatedly. Yes, I've heard about him too. I was thinking that if I could get to know this great person and learn from him, then maybe we could avoid making a lot of mistakes when working on future projects. The thin man frowned slightly, a little disappointed. I don't know if this great person is here at the banquet. If we're lucky enough to bump into him later, we should seize the opportunity to make a good impression. That's for sure. Maybe if he's in a good mood, he can give us some pointers. Shorty, on the other hand, was full of hope and daydreaming. Maybe, just maybe, we can work with this great person in the future. The three of them enthusiastically discussed the matter while looking around. They hoped to find the mysterious person they were eager to befriend in the crowd at the banquet. However, they didn't notice Yian, who was standing next to them, listening to their conversation quietly. He was the person who had won the Old Devil project with this creative solution. Yian listened to their discussion and couldn't help but smile faintly. It was naturally a happy thing to receive affirmation and praise from others. However, this top-ranked solution was only his preliminary version. For some time, he had been pondering how to upgrade and optimize it to make it more valuable. So, Yian couldn't help but say, actually, this is only the preliminary version, and it still has a lot of room for improvement and can be further upgraded. The three men were in the middle of a heated discussion when they heard Yian's words. They were stunned at first, and then their gazes fell on him at the same time. The three men didn't know Yian at all, and had never heard of such a person. Moreover, Yian looked very young, in his early 20s. They guessed that he was just a small assistant or follower tagging along with a boss to make an appearance. They didn't even look at what kind of occasion this was. He really thinks he can be compared to those who are really capable. He has no idea of his own limitations. For a moment, the three looked at Yian with a mixture of scrutiny and disdain. The skinny one spoke first in a strange voice. Yo, who are you? You're being so arrogant here. This is the number one idea on the list, and many industry leaders have to give it a thumbs up when they see it. But you, as soon as you open your mouth, you say you can upgrade it. You don't even know your own weight, and you really think this idea is like cabbage in your own garden, that you can fiddle with it as you like? The other side. Go Dongxi was dragged out of the banquet hall by security guards like a dead dog. At this moment, the bright lights were instantly cut off, and the door slammed shut with a dull sound. Go Dongxi felt dizzy. His legs went weak, and if the security guard hadn't held him up, he would have collapsed to the ground. He was filled with remorse, and the scornful glances and harsh words from the banquet flashed through his mind. Each scene burned like a red-hot iron on his heart. He knew in his heart that he had completely failed this time. Not only had his reputation been ruined, but he had also been blocked by the business leaders. He could imagine the doors to his social circle, where he had once mingled and exchanged flattery, closing in the future. The lucrative collaborations that had been agreed upon would burst like bubbles. Go Dongxi felt his chest tighten, as if a boulder were weighing him down, suffocating him. It was only when the security guard threw him to the side of the street and turned to leave that Go Dongxi came to his senses. He fumbled with his phone, his fingers shaking so badly that he nearly dialed the wrong number a few times. When he finally got through to his family, he choked back his tears and said, "Grandpa, it's me, Dongxi." There was a long silence on the other end of the line before Go's grandfather barked angrily. "How dare you call back here? Lin Zhenyue even called here. Look what you've done. You've brought shame to the family." As he listened to his grandfather's angry tirade, Go Dongxi was unable to refute. His eyes welled with tears, which danced in their sockets, but he dared not let them fall. All he could do was stammer an explanation. "Grandpa, I really didn't mean to do it. I was confused." "Confused? You're an adult, and you make such a low-class mistake. Are you that hungry? You have a fiancé and you're still fooling around? What have I taught you? Family reputation is more important than anything else. Now you've ruined it all. Shame on you. Get back here right now." Grandpa's scolding came one after the other. Go Dongxi's hand holding the phone tightened with each passing second, and his heart was filled with sadness. He had just hung up the phone at home. The caller ID of his fiancée suddenly popped up. Go Dongxi took a deep breath to calm down. He pressed the answer button, forced a smile, and said softly, "Dear." Before he could finish, his fiancée's shrill and angry voice came over the phone. "Go Dongxi, you're really something. The whole circle has heard about the scandal at the banquet, and all my friends have been asking me what happened. Where will you put my face? Are we still getting married?" Go Dongxi's heart tightened. His fiancée was the daughter of a wealthy company. Their marriage had also been arranged by their families, and they could be considered well matched, with each being satisfied with the other. If the marriage could not be consummated because of the banquet incident, it would not just be a matter of him being humiliated. Both sets of parents would come looking for trouble with him, and the consequences alone made his scalp tingle. So, he hurriedly explained. "Baby, listen to me, that's not true. You have to believe me. After all these years of being in love, don't let this ruin things." Chapter 80, Contacting a Private Investigator. But Go Dongxi's fiancée was obviously in a rage and had no intention of listening to his explanations. "Relationship? When you did this, did you ever think about our relationship? I never thought you were like this. Just thinking about it makes me sick. Luckily I didn't give myself to you, otherwise I would have caught that dirty disease too. From now on we have nothing to do with each other, and let's cancel the wedding." The fiancé hung up the phone with a snap. There was only a busy tone in the receiver, and Go Dongxi held the phone in his hand, standing there in a daze. He stood on the street for a long time, until a cold wind blew past, making him shiver. He then slowly moved his feet as if he had just woken up from a dream, and walked towards his car parked not far away. Once he got into the car, he rested his hands on the steering wheel, but did not start the engine for a long time. His eyes looked blankly at the endless stream of cars outside the windshield. The decisive and hurtful words of his grandfather and fiancée kept echoing in his ears. After a while, he seemed to come back to his senses, started the car mechanically, and slowly drove onto the main road. Along the way, his thoughts were completely occupied by the two conversations he had just had. His mind was full of the rebukes and disappointments he was about to face, and he didn't even notice the road conditions ahead. Just at an intersection, the traffic light suddenly turned red. Go Dongxi was in a daze and drove straight towards a large truck loaded with goods. Fortunately, the truck driver responded quickly and slammed on the brakes. The harsh sound of the brakes cut through the night sky, and the two cars narrowly missed each other. The truck driver stuck his head out, his face full of anger, and yelled at the top of his lungs. "You son of a bitch! Don't you have eyes? If you want to die, don't take me with you." Go Dongxi was awakened by this yell, his face pale, his hands clenched around the steering wheel, cold sweat pouring off him. He didn't bother to think about why the truck driver knew his name. After a while, he eased off the gas and drove towards home. The car slowly pulled into the courtyard of his home, and Go Dongxi turned off the engine. He sat in the car for a while, really afraid to face the anger of his family. After much hesitation, he got out of the car quietly. Hunched over, he tried to avoid the sight of his family as much as possible and snuck back to his room. As soon as he entered the room, Go Dongxi locked the door behind him, leaned against the door and slowly slid to the ground, breathing heavily. Once his emotions had calmed down a little, he began to calm down and recall the scene at the banquet in detail. The face of the woman who claimed to have an affair with him searched his mind for a match. However, no matter how hard he tried, he really didn't have the slightest impression. Although he was indeed a womanizer in his daily life, for such a thing, even if he was drunk and disconnected, there should be some vague shadow left. There was no way that there was no trace to follow, as there was now. Go Dongxi's brow was knitted, and his hands unconsciously tugged at his hair. This was too strange. Although he had done many bad things, could it be that someone had deliberately set him up this time? If that was really the case, then who was it that had gone to such lengths to push him over the edge? Was it those rivals in the business world who had been snubbed by him and had a grudge against him? They want to take this opportunity to bring him down, so that he can never get back on his feet? The more he thought about it, the more his spine tingled, and cold sweat broke out again. No! He can't just sit here and wait for death, and let people slaughter him. Go Dongxi gritted his teeth and swore secretly. No matter who is behind this, he has to find him. Only in this way may there be a glimmer of hope. He could restore the family's reputation and also save himself for the rest of his life. He slowly got up, his eyes full of determination. He frantically searched the room. The papers on the table were scattered, and the miscellaneous items in the drawer were emptied. Finally, in the false compartment of an old wallet, he found a crumpled business card with the contact information of a private detective. At the banquet. The fat man next to him snorted. "Yes, you were the one who just went to calm the woman who was causing trouble, so I guess this is the kind of errand-running job you would do. You're still here criticizing such a high-end idea, you're probably still asleep and dreaming here." The short man was even more exaggerated, laughing so hard he had to hold his stomach, and it took a while for him to catch his breath. He pointed at Yian and mocked. "Ha, I told you looked familiar, and it turns out you're the little character who ran around just now. You're probably not even able to understand this plan, and you're just here bragging about it? This is your first time at this kind of high-level banquet, and you've forgotten what kind of status you have, and you really think highly of yourself. Ha, you're not ashamed of showing off." This series of mean and ruthless words. When Yian heard this, his brows furrowed slightly. These people were forming their first impression of him based solely on the fact that he was young and had just gone and done something like appeasing the actress, which seemed like menial work. It was too superficial and arbitrary to rush to deny his abilities. He had come with the mindset of engaging in friendly exchanges, thinking that since everyone was interested in this idea, they could discuss it together, share ideas with each other, and maybe even spark more inspiration. This way, the idea can be perfected and we can all benefit from it. He never expected them to be so mean-spirited, unable to tolerate other people's different opinions, and only mocking and laughing. He shook his head slightly. Although he felt a little helpless, he was more determined. They are biased against him, and that is their narrow-mindedness. He knew exactly what he was capable of, and he had put a lot of effort into this idea. He understands its potential only too well, so how could he back down just because of a few cold words? Yian suppressed his displeasure and put on a faint smile again. He responded with neither humility nor arrogance. "In my opinion, any idea can be iterated and upgraded. It's just like those classic business models, which have also been continuously optimized and improved with the development of the times. I'm just proposing a possibility, and we can discuss it calmly. There's no need to be sarcastic right away." Upon hearing this, the thin man's disdain grew even more, and he snorted, "You think you can just come up with a random idea and upgrade it? You're just a kid, and I'm afraid you haven't even scratched the surface, yet you're pretending to discuss it. We don't have the time to listen to your nonsense, so you'd better just go away. The fat and skinny guys also chimed in, looking at Yian with contempt. Just then, Lin Zhenyue walked onto the stage with a steady pace. He cleared his throat. Everyone, tonight's banquet has been full of excitement, and our ranking of creative ideas is a highlight. His loud voice instantly pierced through the noise from the audience, attracting everyone's attention. At this moment, I would like to formally introduce to you the first place winner of this creative ranking list, Yian. Mr. Yian is unique and talented. The idea he proposed has enlightened our team, and the potential and value it contains is immeasurable. Please invite Yian to come up to the stage to share his thoughts and insights with everyone. Chapter 81, Apologizing to Yian. Please invite Yian to come up to the stage to share his thoughts and insights with us. The crowd was stunned at first, then burst into warm applause, and they looked around the crowd, searching for Yian's figure. Yian slightly straightened his clothes, looked calm, with a humble smile, and steadily walked towards the stage. The three people next to him, who had just been sneering at Yian, were now staring with eyes as big as copper bells. The three of them stood there in shock, their jaws almost dropping to the ground. The disdain on their faces instantly froze, replaced by a sense of shock and disbelief. Their hearts were in turmoil. Who would have thought it? The young man they had just been mocking was actually the creator of the top solution. Yian is still so young. In their eyes, he must be arrogant and most likely to hold a grudge. In that case, it would be extremely difficult to befriend Yian. It would also be difficult to work with Yian in the future. Would they be deliberately made to feel uncomfortable? Would they not even be allowed in the door? These questions buzzed around in their minds like a swarm of annoying flies, distracting them. The fat man frowned, glared at the skinny man next to him, and said irritably, "You were the one who spoke out of turn just now. Now look, Lin Zhenyue really values Yian. What does he value? Yian's talent, of course. If we can befriend someone like Yian in the future, that would be a great help to us." After hearing what the fat guy said, the short guy also scratched his head in annoyance and agreed. Yes, if Yian just casually cooperated with us, it would be enough to feed us for years. Now, it's all messed up by your stupid mouth. The skinny guy also looked full of regret when he heard what the two said. Yes, I was quick-tempered and really didn't control myself. Originally, everyone was going their own way and getting along fine, but they had to offend others because of those few words of verbal dispute. It was simply not worth it. He sighed heavily, his face full of self-reproach. Now look. If Yian holds a grudge against them, they won't be able to ask for help in the future. They'll be embarrassed whenever they meet, and they might even trip them up. Yian was not affected by the cold words just now, and walked steadily up to the stage step by step. After standing still, he first politely nodded slightly to Lin Zhenyue to thank him. Then he looked calmly at the crowd below, cleared his throat, and spoke calmly. "I am grateful for the kindness of General Lin, and I also thank you all for your attention to this idea. In fact, this idea can be upgraded." He spoke eloquently and eloquently. His speech was clear and logical, and his words exuded professionalism and confidence. The skeptical crowd gradually became engrossed in the speech, and many of them nodded frequently, their eyes full of admiration. The three people in the audience exchanged guilty and annoyed glances with each other. They all knew in their hearts that the sarcasm they had just unleashed was really too much, and they had offended the other person badly. What we did to Yian just now was really inappropriate. We should at least apologize to him and try to salvage the situation. Alas, this is the only way. But we have to be prepared for him to reject us. After all, we just said some really harsh things, and no one could possibly not hold a grudge. Yes, no matter what, we should go and sincerely apologize first. Whether it works out or not, we've done our best. Not long after, Yian finished sharing his thoughts, and the audience applauded thunderously. Lin Zhenyue, beaming from ear to ear, walked up to him and patted him on the shoulder. "Yian, you gave a wonderful speech. I look forward to seeing how you do in the competition." Yian smiled modestly. "Mr. Lin, you're too kind. I'll do my best." After saying this, he walked off the stage surrounded by the admiring gazes of the crowd. The three of them hurriedly went up to him, their faces full of flattering and slightly embarrassed smiles. The thin man spoke first, his voice full of apology. "Mr. Yi, we never would have guessed that you were the designer of this proposal. We were just thinking that some nobody was talking nonsense. That's why we spoke without thinking and offended you. We hope you can forgive us and not hold it against us." The fat guy quickly followed suit, smiling apologetically. "Yes, Mr. Yi, we really didn't know who we were dealing with. We looked down on you because you're so young. Please don't take it personally." The short guy nodded vigorously next to him. "Mr. Yi, we sincerely apologize. We were in the wrong just now. Please forgive our rudeness." The three of them looked at Yian with bated breath. They were afraid that Yian would not accept their apology and just turn around and leave. Or embarrass them on the spot, and then they really wouldn't know what to do. Yian looked at the way they sincerely apologized. The slight displeasure in his heart gradually dissipated. After all, who can't make a mistake? They did speak harshly just now. But now, with this sincere apology, they can be seen to be sincere in admitting their mistakes. There is no need for him to dwell on this mistake, as it would make him appear petty and narrow-minded. It is better to resolve conflicts than to let them fester, and in the business world, it is always better to have more friends than enemies. As he thought this, Yian's face once again beamed with a gentle smile. "Guys, don't be so nervous. Actually, I didn't take what happened earlier too seriously. It was all just luck that this proposal came out on top. I just happened to catch a lucky break." The three of them looked at each other when they heard this, and a flash of surprise passed through their eyes. In their eyes, Yian's words were nothing but humble words. They had just carefully studied and praised this proposal, and they knew full well the subtlety and uniqueness it contained. How could it be done just by luck? How much hard work and research must have gone into it to achieve such amazing results? And Yian's generosity is really rare. In the future, it is a foregone conclusion that he will become prominent in this industry and shine. With these thoughts in mind, the three of them looked at Yian with even more admiration and respect. On the other side, Go Dongxi dialed the number. The moment the call was connected, his voice was urgent. "Hello, is this Detective Chen? This is Go Dongxi, we met before." A slightly puzzled voice came from the other end of the line. "Mr. Go, I remember, calling at this late hour, you must have encountered a difficult situation?" "Detective Chen, I am really in a bind this time. I may have been severely taken advantage of. Now my reputation is in tatters, my family is humiliated, my fiancé has run away, and the big shots in the business world have blocked me. I have almost no way out." As he spoke, his voice unconsciously took on a crying tone. Detective Chen was silent for a moment, and then said softly, "Mr. Go, don't panic. Tell me the whole story." Chapter 82, a good opportunity for a husband and wife to be alone. Go Dongxi swallowed and began to talk incessantly. At the important business banquet today, a woman suddenly appeared. Detective Chen listened while occasionally humming. When Go Dongxi finished, he slowly spoke. "Mr. Go, from what you said, this matter does seem suspicious. I need to find out more about this woman who caused trouble and see if she was acting under someone's orders. In addition, it is also crucial to find out if you have offended anyone in the business world recently or blocked someone's path to wealth." Go Dongxi nodded repeatedly, as if he had grasped a lifeline. Yes, Detective Chen, you are absolutely right. Although I may act arrogantly in my daily life, I really cannot think of anyone I have offended. Money is not a problem. As long as you can help me find the culprit, the reward is up to you." Detective Chen pondered for a moment. "Okay, Mr. Go, don't worry, I will start investigating immediately, and I will contact you as soon as I make progress." "Okay, Detective Chen, I'll leave it all to you." Go Dongxi hung up the phone, let out a long breath, and his tense nerves eased a little. He slumped onto the sofa, his mind racing as he went over the people and events he had recently encountered. After Yian and the three men had resolved the awkwardness, the atmosphere in the ballroom returned to being lively. Several experienced business leaders then took to the stage to share their experiences. Yian and everyone else listened intently, afraid of missing any crucial details. As the leaders finished sharing, the banquet drew to a close. The guests left one after another, but Yian was surrounded by a group of people in the center. Many business leaders took the initiative to come forward and hand out their business cards. Their eyes were full of appreciation and expectations, and they enthusiastically invited Yian to get together in the future to discuss cooperation. Yian took the business cards one by one, responding with humility and politeness, with a gentle smile on his face the whole time. When the crowd gradually dispersed, Yian also bid farewell to Lin Zhenyue. "Go home quickly, Ding Xinhui is waiting for you at home," Lin Zhenyue said with a smile. Yian was a little puzzled. From the way Lin Zhenyue spoke, it sounded as if he knew Ding Xinhui. But then, it was normal for an industry leader like Lin Zhenyue to know Ding Xinhui. In front of Lin Zhenyue, Yian didn't want to ask too many questions, so he just smiled politely and said, "Thank you, Mr. Lin, then I'll go back first. I've gained a lot today thanks to you running this banquet." Lin Zhenyue waved his hand, his eyes showing the kindliness of an elder looking at a junior. "Go, young people are full of energy and talent, and have an unlimited future ahead of them. Get along well with shall we?" Yian then walked out of the hall, got into the Mercedes-Benz G-Class, started the car and went home. On the way back, Yian couldn't help but feel emotional. This banquet was undoubtedly a great success for him. Not only did he get to meet many industry leaders who he could only see in the financial news, but he also broadened his social circle. He also gained a lot of valuable experience from interacting and sharing with elites from all walks of life. A casual remark from one of those leaders could save him from making a lot of detours in the future. Of course, this banquet was just the beginning. What awaited him in the future would be an even more magnificent business journey. Yian smoothly and expertly drove the Mercedes-Benz G-Class slowly into the spacious garage of the villa and turned off the engine. Before he could open the car door, he saw the warm light from the house through the car window. "I guess, just as Lin Zhenyue said, Ding Xinhui has been waiting for me." Yian calmed down a bit after the ups and downs of the night and opened the car door and walked out. As soon as he entered the house, Ding Xinhui immediately got up from the sofa and came up to him in a few steps. She was wearing a camisole nightdress, and her soft hair was casually scattered on her shoulders. Her eyebrows and eyes were full of concern, and she asked as soon as she spoke, "You're finally back. How was the party?" Yian felt a burst of fragrance. Silky, snow-white long legs and a half-exposed cleavage swayed into Yian's eyes. It made him slightly startled, and he felt a little dry in the mouth. Ding Xinhui is usually dignified and elegant, but at the moment, her lazy and carefree appearance at home is full of a unique charm, which made Yian a little lost in thought for a while. After he reacted, he quickly blushed and turned his head away. You haven't slept yet?" Yian's embarrassed appearance fell into Ding Xinhui's eyes. The corner of her mouth rose slightly, and a trace of small satisfaction flashed in her eyes. Her little husband has fallen for her again. This idiot. And he knows it, but he still asks. "I've been waiting for you." Ding Xinhui poked him lightly on the arm, unable to sleep, "And you still haven't told me how the banquet was." Yian coughed twice to try and hide his embarrassment. "I had a very fulfilling evening at the banquet, just with a few minor setbacks." The two of them sat down on the sofa as they spoke. Yian spoke with feeling, while Ding Xinhui rested her fair hands on her head and listened attentively. The next day. Today is Sunday, no work. Facing this rare moment of leisure, Ding Xinhui thought she should seize the opportunity and sent a message secretly. Secretary Wang, the military advisor, went online and said, "Ding Dong, this is a rare opportunity to be alone. You can let Yian teach you to cook. Not only will it add spice to your life, but in the future, if you show off your cooking skills occasionally, it will make Mr. Yi happy and warm his heart. And cooking inevitably involves close physical contact, which will bring you two closer together and create a sweet little atmosphere that is unique to the two of you. Men, seeing their wives cook for them with all their heart, will definitely feel warm in their hearts, and Mr. Yi is no exception." Ding Xinhui read the message from Secretary Wang and a sly smile curled the corner of her mouth. This was indeed a good idea. It would not only increase the fun of spending time together, but also allow for more intimate interactions. She put down her phone and walked towards Yian, who was reading a financial magazine in the living room. She sat down next to him, her big, watery eyes looking at Yian. Since it was a rare weekend off, she asked, "Teach me how to cook." Yian was taken aback at first, and his eyes moved from the magazine in his hands to Ding Xinhui next to him. His eyes were full of surprise, and he teased, "Why does Chairman Ding suddenly want to learn how to cook today?" Auntie Lu, the housekeeper, happened to come in. She heard the two of them talking, and her face wore a gentle smile. "Young master, young lady isn't having a sudden change of heart. The fried eggs in your breakfast every day were made by the young lady who got up early and learned how to cook them. At first, the young lady was clumsy and either burnt the eggs or didn't control the heat well, so they were overcooked. But she refused to give up and practiced every day, just wanting to make your breakfast more palatable." Yian froze upon hearing these words. Chapter 83, My Lady Learns Everything Quickly. Yian felt like something had hit him softly in the heart, sending ripples out. It suddenly dawned on him. It turned out that the slightly overcooked eggs in his breakfast were not something Auntie Lu had deliberately done to his taste. Instead, it was Ding Xinhui, a novice who had never cooked before, who had taken the trouble to try again and again to make them for herself. Since he was young, only his grandmother would remember to make breakfast for him every day. No matter the heat or cold, the familiar smell was full of her deep care for him. Later, when his grandmother grew old and was in poor health, he never tasted a breakfast that was full of such heartfelt care again. He thought that breakfast time, which was treated with such care, could only be sealed in his memories. But he never expected that the woman in front of him now, the high and mighty female chairman of the board in the eyes of the outside world, the eldest daughter of the Ding group, Ding Xinhui, would do such seemingly insignificant but incredibly warm things for him. Ding Xinhui never expected Auntie Lu to blurt out everything she had learned about frying eggs. Auntie Lu, really? She had been told not to tell Yian about it. Now it was all out in the open. At the moment, her heart was racing. Although she was doing this whole thing out of the kindness of her heart, wanting Yian to eat comfortably. But after all, her cooking skills are rusty, and the fried eggs don't look very appetizing. She has always worried that Yian actually dislikes them, but is too polite to say so. Now that Auntie Lu has spoken so bluntly, it's like she's revealed her carefully guarded secret. It's laid bare before Yian, making her feel both shy and apprehensive. Although she usually rules the roost in the business world with ease. But would he think her too clumsy if he saw her awkwardly trying to cook? But then she thought again, Yian is not that shallow. But ultimately, her anxiety still prevailed. She lowered her eyes, afraid to look directly at Yian's expression at the moment, her fingers nervously intertwined. Auntie Lu just likes to gossip. Actually, it's not really a big deal. If the omelet doesn't suit your taste, please don't mind it. Her voice grew lower and lower, and she secretly raised her eyes and quickly glanced at Yian. Yian's original teasing and wonder had long since disappeared. His gaze lingered on Ding Xinhui's face for a long time. Not only did he not dislike it, he even felt a little heartache. He felt heartache for her. She was already tired from being busy with the company, and she even found time to learn how to cook, just so that he could eat well. She is a strong woman in the business world, decisive and resolute. For him, she is willing to nestle in the kitchen and patiently fiddle with pots and pans. This contrast only makes Ding Xinhui more endearing and moving to him. He opened his mouth, and it took him a while to find his voice. How could I dislike it? This is the most carefully prepared omelette I've ever eaten, wife, thank you. Ding Xinhui was a little embarrassed by Yian's sudden solemnity. She lowered her eyes slightly, and the long eyelashes cast a small shadow on the eyelids as she whispered. Oh, what's there to be thankful for? It's just a few eggs. Although she said this, being valued by Yian in this way made her heart feel as sweet as honey. Auntie Lu, who was watching the interaction between the young couple, smiled even more brightly, and she quietly stepped back. Yian stood up and said, "Let's go to the kitchen. I guarantee that your cooking skills will improve by leaps and bounds." Ding Xinhui raised her sparkling eyes and said, "Okay." The two walked towards the kitchen, and Yian did not forget to tease her along the way. However, the kitchen was a sacred place, and it would be filled with smoke in a moment, so don't let our chairman, Ding, get smoked. Ding Xinhui gave him a look, but a smile was on the corner of her mouth. Don't underestimate me, I'm quick at learning everything, and this little task of cooking won't be a problem for me. On the other side, Li Shueqian's company. She arrived at the meeting room early this morning. At the moment, Li Shueqian was full of energy, still high from the excitement of the successful deal last night. Her mind was full of visions of how the company would soon be resurrected with this core technology. She cleared her throat and looked around at the technicians gathered around the conference table. Everyone, today's meeting is crucial. Last night, I went to great lengths to obtain the core technology of the financial risk early warning system. Next, I'm counting on everyone to quickly put it into use, get the project back on track, and turn our company around. The technicians were full of curiosity and expectation when they heard this, and they whispered to each other. Then Li Shueqian solemnly handed the hard drive she had obtained last night to the technical supervisor. Supervisor Wang, you take the lead and lead the team in a thorough study of this technology. We must quickly master it and integrate it into our existing project. Supervisor Wang took the hard drive with both hands and nodded repeatedly as if he had received a precious treasure. Don't worry, Ms. Li. Our team is always reliable. With this key technology, the project will definitely advance smoothly and be guaranteed to succeed. The technicians quickly got to work, connected the equipment and imported the data from the hard drive into the testing system. Their fingers flew over the keyboard as they stared at the constantly scrolling data and complex charts on the screen. As the minutes passed, the meeting room was so quiet that the only sounds were the equipment running and the soft clicking of keys. Li Shueqian sat on the side, her hands unconsciously intertwined, her eyes fixed on the technician's work without daring to blink. After a long time, Director Wang looked up, his face full of excitement. General Manager Li, the preliminary verification is complete. This technology is exquisite. It completely meets the needs of our current project, and it far exceeds the current industry standards. With it, our project will definitely be able to proceed unimpeded. Not to mention, just the timeliness and accuracy of the early warning, there are not many comparable products on the market. The technicians around him also chimed in. They all praised the technology, full of admiration and joy. Li Shueqian's originally tense nerves completely relaxed, and she let out a long sigh, her face breaking into a relieved smile. She leaned back in her chair, slightly reclined. Great, there really is no way the sky will block one's path. The pressure at work has been immense these days, and it's exhausted her, but now she can finally feel good about herself. All the problems caused by the stalled project can be solved. With this, her company will be unstoppable in the industry. In the future, a lot of projects will come to her. Director Wang, you must pay close attention to the follow-up and not be careless at every step, so that the results can be achieved as soon as possible. Director Wang patted his chest and promised, Don't worry, Ms. Li, we will definitely work overtime, strictly control the process, and never let you down. Li Shueqian nodded with a smile, already imagining the prosperous scene of the company after it has been resurrected. With the core technology and the team's hard work, the system can definitely be made very quickly. She will definitely be able to make the system earlier than Yian. By then, if Yian also comes up with the same system, she can sue Yian for plagiarism. Yian was resolute when she left, without any mercy, but now it is her turn to strike. Once her system is first to hit the market, it will be a huge success. No matter how much Yian argues, in the face of hard evidence, she will be left with no way to defend herself. At that time, Yian will lose everything and become a copycat hated by everyone. He will be left with no way out, and will have no choice but to come back to her, humbly begging for her forgiveness and asking for her forgiveness. As she thought about this, the corner of her mouth unconsciously rose. Chapter 84, Why are you so red? Yian and Ding Xinhui went to the kitchen. Yian first opened the cupboard to check the ingredients. After thinking for a while, he took out some tomatoes and eggs. Let's start with a simple home-cooked dish and make scrambled eggs with tomatoes. You see, the tomatoes need to be washed first, and then a cross needs to be drawn on the top. This way, when they are scalded in the pan later, the skin can be easily peeled off. Yian demonstrated how to do it, with skillful and neat movements. Ding Xinhui watched intently, her head tilted slightly. She looked like a good student listening attentively, nodding from time to time and murmuring to herself. Oh, I see, that's what the cross is for, I didn't know that before. After Yian had finished with the tomatoes, she took out the eggs and began to teach Ding Xinhui how to break them. You do it like this, tap the egg gently against the side of the bowl, then break it with your hands and pour the egg liquid into the bowl. But be careful not to get any eggshells in there. When I first started, I dropped a lot of eggshells into the bowl. Ding Xinhui was eager to try, reached out and took the egg, and followed Yian's instructions. The first time she cracked it too lightly and it didn't break, and the second time she cracked it a little harder and the egg liquid flowed all over her hands. Ding Xinhui looked at her hands covered in gooey egg liquid and felt a little flustered. She looked up at Yian secretly, and her long, fine eyelashes trembled slightly. She was usually decisive in the marketplace, and when making decisions and discussing projects, she was so sharp and to the point. But now, in this tiny kitchen, facing just a few eggs, she was clumsy. Would Yian change his opinion of her because of this? Would he think that she was just a spoiled, pampered young lady who didn't know how to do anything with her hands? That despite her prowess in the business world, she was useless in life? She was even more afraid that he would lose patience. That he would get tired of watching her awkwardly learn to cook and stop teaching her. Thinking this, she became even more uncomfortable, not knowing where to put her hands and feet. She stood still. Like a child at a loss after making a mistake, her eyes were lowered, and even her ears were quietly flushed. Yian just shook his head and smiled, quickly pulling out a piece of paper. He gently took her pale, soft little hand. His movements were gentle, as he carefully wiped the egg mixture, and said softly, It's okay, it's your first time, you'll get the hang of it after a few more tries. I was even more of a mess than you were at first, so just take your time. Ding Xinhui listened to Yian's gentle words and raised her eyes. She saw him smiling with his eyebrows and eyes, without the slightest hint of disgust or annoyance in his eyes. His gaze seemed to have a tangible warmth to it, and it made her eyes slightly hot. Yi patiently wiped the egg liquid from Ding Xinhui's hands. The yellow color was becoming less and less, and the exposed white was becoming more and more. Don't say it. Her small hands are very tender and smooth. They are no different from the egg liquid. I really want to squeeze them. It was with such a hand that he signed his name on the documents one after the other. He decided on major and minor projects and changed the lives of many people. Now it is in his hands, obedient and docile. There was no trace of the usual sharpness that he used to use to point out the way in the business world. It made him feel very intimate. Ding Xinhui followed Yian's gaze and also lowered her eyes to look at her own hands. The discomfort caused by the egg liquid had long since disappeared. As Yian wiped it away, she felt her hands tingling. It was as if feathers were gently tickling her. Each wipe brought a tingling sensation. It snaked along her skin and reached her heart, causing her heart to itch. She quietly raised her eyes and secretly looked at Yian, who was close at hand. His lowered eyebrows, straight nose, and thin lips slightly pursed in concentration were all deadly attractive to her. He was her ideal type. No one can suppress the fantasy of their ideal type. She felt like she was caught in a rapidly spinning vortex. This feeling came so quickly, like a tornado. But at least a tornado can be monitored by the weather forecast. But this feeling came unexpectedly, in just a split second. Her heartbeat became more and more intense, and her ears began to burn. She secretly despised herself in her heart for being so useless. It was just a hand wiping. Why did she lose her composure like this? But the pounding in her heart was completely out of control, like a runaway horse. If only there could be more intimate moments like this in the days to come. Waking up to see his sleepy but indulgent face. On a rainy day, the two of them share an umbrella. He wraps his arms tightly around her shoulders, protecting her in his arms, and doesn't care if the rain soaks his shoulders as they walk slowly in the rain. The more Ding Xinhui thinks about it, the more absorbed she becomes, and her cheeks begin to burn. Her gaze was glued to Yian's face, unable to move an inch. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, Yian finished wiping down the counter. He straightened up and looked at Ding Xinhui's flushed face. A trace of confusion flashed in his eyes. Why are you so red? Is the kitchen too hot? Hearing this, Ding Xinhui hurriedly looked away and fanned the air with her hands. Ah, yes, it is a bit hot. Let's continue cooking, she said, hurriedly turning around, pretending to be calm as she picked up the spatula, trying to hide her guilty conscience. However, her slightly trembling fingertips had already betrayed the turmoil in her heart. Yian watched her pick up the spatula and smiled, softly saying, "It's not time to put it in the pan yet, next you need to stir the egg mixture well." The eggs and tomatoes sizzled in the pan, emitting a fragrant smell. Ding Xinhui picked up the chopsticks, put a piece of egg in her mouth, savored it, and her eyes lit up. It tastes pretty good. I feel like I participated in making it, and it tastes even better when I eat it. In the future, we can cook together often. Yian nodded with a smile. Okay, as long as you want to learn, I'll teach you anytime. In the future, we'll unlock more delicious food together. In this way, the two of them spent the weekend leisurely. The next day, the sun shone down on the earth. Life gears up, and everything starts to get busy. Yian arrives at the office and plunges into the various data and project plans. On the other side, Li Xueqian's office. The door is suddenly pushed open with force, and she is startled, looking up. Her father Li Dehai walks in with a gloomy face, his eyes full of anger. Li Xueqian's heart lurches, and she has a vague feeling of foreboding. Li Dehai slammed the documents in his hand onto the table with a loud thud. He glared at Li Xueqian and asked, "Tell me, what is going on in the company? I just found out that you lied to me and actually cheated the investment from the financial investment side, but all you have is a half-finished system. If this goes wrong, our company will be completely finished. What the hell are you trying to do?" Chapter 85, Persuade Yian to come back. Li Dehai's chest heaved with anger, and he was both angry and anxious. He had wanted to leave the company in his daughter's hands, but she had made such a mess of things. Now the situation was critical, and Li Xueqian still looked unconcerned. It was all Li Xueqian's fault for cheating on him in the first place, and she had driven away someone as capable as Yian. If Yian were still at the company, there would be no need to worry about these difficult problems from a technical perspective. With Yian's abilities, he would have solved all the problems long ago, and the company would not have reached the current precarious state. But there was no use getting angry about what had already happened. They had to find a way to remedy the situation. Li Xueqian felt a little flustered by her father's interrogation, but she still pretended to be calm. She hurriedly explained, "Dad, calm down. I've already obtained the core technology of the financial risk early warning system. Look, I've already handed it over to the technical team to study, and they all say that this technology is particularly powerful. With it, we will definitely be able to quickly and successfully create a complete system, and the company's crisis will be lifted immediately." She blinked her eyes. She didn't dare to say that the technology was obtained through improper means, and just wanted to calm her father down first. Li Dehai frowned, looking suspicious. "Is it really as reliable as you say? Where did this technology come from? Don't tell me you got it from some unreliable source again. We can't afford to have problems again." Li Xueqian bit her lip, hesitated for a moment, but then plucked up her courage and said, "Dad, don't worry about the source, it will definitely work, just trust me this once." On hearing this, Li Dehai's brows knitted into a deep frown. He knew that the company was in such a dire situation that there were not many other options. And his daughter was already so old, she should know what she could and could not do. Li Dehai sighed, his voice a little tired. "Xueqian, I will trust you this time, but you must know that this is about the survival of the company, and there can be no mistakes. If you find anything wrong during the process, you must tell me immediately." "I understand." Li Xueqian let out a sigh of relief. Li Dehai nodded, then as if remembering something unpleasant, his face grew even gloomier and his tone a little more severe. "Oh, and that Xiao Wenjun, you'd better not associate with him anymore." Li Xueqian was a little puzzled by her father's sudden mention of Xiao Wenjun. In the past, although her father hadn't been very supportive of her closeness to Xiao Wenjun, he had never explicitly expressed his disapproval. Why had his attitude suddenly changed 180 degrees today? Xiao Wenjun sometimes likes to act clever, and he's not always dependable. But when I need help, he can at least lend a hand. Besides, he usually hangs around me a lot, fawning over me. As if he could read Li Xueqian's mind, Li Dehai snorted in anger and disgust. "You still don't know? Xiao Wenjun made a fool of himself at the Shanghai banquet a few days ago, and he has completely disgraced the Xiao family. He is now under house arrest by Xiao Qidong and is not allowed to leave the house. That was personally ordered by the head of the Xiao family, and no mercy was shown." When mentioning this matter, Li Dehai couldn't help but shake his head repeatedly, his eyes full of contempt and disappointment for Xiao Wenjun. This Xiao Wenjun kid. On the surface he looks clever, but in reality he is completely unkempt. He's like a lump of mud, and no matter how hard you try to help him, he'll never get anywhere. At that important business banquet, there were so many pairs of eyes watching. Everyone was hoping to use the opportunity to make connections and expand their business. But no, he had to go and act recklessly and mess up the whole thing. If only he had a bit of Yian's steadiness and could control his big mouth, he wouldn't have ended up in such an embarrassing situation. Xiao Wenjun has a family background, and he usually brags about the Xiao family name. In fact, he is a useless person. He is good at nothing, and he is the #1 troublemaker. I thought that even if he acted recklessly, he would at least be able to act with some sense and know what is important. Unexpectedly, at such a crucial business banquet, he completely disregarded the Xiao family's reputation and behaved recklessly. Thinking about this, Li Dehai felt remorseful and blamed himself for his decision at the time. At that time, when he saw his daughter getting close to Xiao Wenjun, although he was not very happy about it, he did not forcefully stop her, thinking that it was just young people playing around. In contrast, Yian, although from an ordinary background with no money and no connections, had a calm demeanor. When it came to studying technology, he was focused and able to solve problems with determination. Which of these qualities were not urgently needed by their company? They should have held on to Yian and persuaded him to stay. Promising Yian a higher position and better pay, they should never have let their daughter's nonsense drive him away. But Li Dehai had a glimmer of hope. Yian was a young man with no family connections, and leaving the big tree that was Li's company, the stormy business world outside was not so easy to bear. The business world is like a battlefield, with fierce and cutthroat competition. How far can he go on his own? Perhaps he has already been battered and bruised by reality. When he has suffered enough and realizes the difficulties and obstacles in the outside world, he will naturally miss the stability of working in his own company and come back to seek employment. Although Li Xueqian has vowed that she has obtained the core technology, Li Dehai is still on tenterhooks, unsure. If Yian were here at this time, with his excellent technical skills, he would be able to turn the crisis into peace. As he thought about it, Li Dehai became more determined to find a way to recruit Yian back. Even if it means going through more trouble and offering attractive conditions, he is willing to do it. Li Dehai looked up at his daughter, Xueqian, and said, "I think you'd better persuade Yian to come back. With him here, we'll have a better chance." On hearing this, Li Xueqian felt an unknown anger well up in her heart. It's Yian again. Why does he have to be involved in everything? Why does it seem that in her father's eyes, the company can't function without Yian, and everything has to revolve around him? When Yian left, she didn't give him the chance to change his mind. He was determined to go, and didn't know how to cherish what he had. Now it's become like the company can't function without him? Sheath Li Xueqian also has backbone, and she can't bring herself to go back to Yian and beg for peace. Besides, she has finally managed to get hold of the core technology for the financial risk warning system. The technical team has also sworn that there is no problem. With this technology as a backup, it doesn't matter whether Yian is there or not. As long as this project is completed smoothly and the system created is amazing to the entire business world. Seeing that the company is developing so well, Yian will naturally regret his decision and beg to come back. As for Xiao Wenjun, although he caused a scene at the banquet and is now under house arrest, it's no big deal. He just acts a bit ostentatiously and makes the occasional mistake, not something unforgivable. And when he thinks about the follow-up plan, and Yian comes up with a similar system, he will have to sue him for plagiarism. At that time, it is always good to have an extra person to help with advice and connections. Xiao Wenjun's family background is there, and it may really come in handy at critical moments. Thinking this, Li Xueqian only responded perfunctorily. "Dad, what time is it now?" The project is in full swing, and there is no time to worry about whether Yian will come back or not. I can't even keep an eye on the technical team, let alone worry about Yian's return. Let's talk about it when this storm passes. As she spoke, she pretended to be busy, picked up the documents on the table, and casually flipped through a few pages. Thanks to, for the inspiration capsule reward, and to the other big brothers for the rewards for powering with love. Love you all, Xiao Mei. Chapter 86, You must hold your sister-in-law firmly in your hands. Meanwhile, Xiao Yuan also came to work at his new company. After the meeting, his colleagues left the meeting room one after another. Xiao Yuan sat in his original position, a little hesitant, but his curiosity was still hard to suppress. He gritted his teeth and decided to stay and ask his boss. There were only the two of them left in the meeting room. Xiao Yuan stood up, his tone slightly nervous. "Boss, I've actually always been quite puzzled. How did I get invited to work at your company?" After he finished speaking, Xiao Yuan became even more nervous. Although he had worked hard, he had always followed the rules and had never achieved anything outstanding. Now he was working for a company that was not small in size and was quite well known in the industry. Many people would kill to get into a good department, so how did he manage to get in so easily? How did such a good thing happen to him? He both expected his boss to give him a reasonable explanation, and he was vaguely worried that by asking this question, he might seem ungrateful. The boss smiled kindly when he heard what he said. He stood up, walked over to Xiao Yuan, and patted him on the shoulder. "Zhao, there's actually no complicated reason. You're a good friend of Mr. Ding Xinhui. If they're friends, they can naturally be trusted. We believe that people who can befriend them must be of good character and ability. That is why we invited you to our company and placed you in this good department, in the hope that you will do well here and achieve results." Upon hearing this, Xiao Yuan's eyes widened and he was unable to come back to his senses for a long time. He never imagined that Yian and Ding Xinhui had helped him so much behind his back. His heart was filled with mixed emotions. He was both grateful to them and embarrassed, feeling as if he had only got this rare opportunity because of the light of his friends. At the same time, he secretly made up his mind that he must work hard here and never let them down. He couldn't let others think that he had only got in because of his connections and didn't have any real ability. "Brother, sister-in-law. You have my gratitude, Xiao Yuan. He must do well." Xiao Yuan returned to his workstation with a heavy heart. After sitting down, he took a deep breath to calm down his excitement. Then he took out his phone and dialed Yian's number. The call was quickly connected, and Yian's familiar voice came from the receiver. "Hey, buddy, what are you doing calling me now? How's the new job?" Xiao Yuan's eyes reddened slightly as he listened to the voice, and his voice was also a little choked. "Brother, I really don't know how to thank you." Yian was confused by these words. "Why thank me? You've only just started work, why so many emotions? Have you run into some kind of problem?" Xiao Yuan sniffed and hurriedly explained. "No, brother, just now I asked my boss why he would take the initiative to invite me to work here and place me in such a good department. Guess what the boss said? He told me it was because of your wife's connections. I just realized that you guys have been quietly helping me behind the scenes." Yian was obviously stunned at the other end of the phone and didn't know what to say for a moment. He never imagined that Ding Xinhui had arranged a job for Xiao Yuan behind his back. Xiao Yuan didn't notice Yian's unusual reaction and went on talking about himself. "Brother, you are so lucky. Your wife is really something. My ex-girlfriend, as soon as she saw someone else was rich, immediately started to dislike me for being poor. She could change her face like a mask and dumped me. But my wife-to-be not only doesn't dislike me for being an ordinary person with no great abilities, she has also quietly arranged a job for me. I never would have imagined that I could work for such a great company and in such a great department. These days, it's hard to find someone who is as genuinely kind as your sister-in-law. You must hold on to her tightly, be good to her, and not let her down. You are lucky to have met her, and I am truly happy for you." Xiao Yuan became more and more excited, and his tone of voice unconsciously rose a few notches. "I used to feel like I was out of luck, with a job that was just so-so and a relationship that was a complete mess. I never thought that at a critical moment you and my sister-in-law would give me a hand and give me such a rare opportunity. Brother, don't worry, in the future Xiao Yuan, will definitely work hard for this company and make a difference. I will never let you worry about me and I will never let you down." Upon hearing this, Yian's grip on the phone tightened slightly, and the surprise in his eyes was hard to hide. He never would have expected it. That night, on the way back from dropping Xiao Yuan off, he casually mentioned Xiao Yuan's difficulties. Ding Xinhui had quietly taken it all to heart and immediately put it into action. "You have to understand that she has a mountain of affairs to deal with every day, and it is normal for her to be busy all the time. But even though she is so busy, she still finds the energy to specially plan the future for Xiao Yuan and quietly arranges everything." This meticulous attention to detail made Yian feel an indescribable feeling well up inside. Yian came back to his senses and smiled. "I always knew you had potential. Seize this opportunity. If you encounter any problems at work, feel free to talk to me." The two of them chatted for a while longer, and Xiao Yuan shared his plans for his future work with Yian, who listened patiently, giving pertinent advice from time to time. After hanging up the phone, Yian leaned back in his chair, his eyes a little vacant, his mind full of the fact that Ding Xinhui had quietly helped Xiao Yuan. He knew full well that by doing so, Ding Xinhui did not want him to feel that she was doing her a favor. This delicate thoughtfulness and silent dedication made her all the more precious. He bowed his head slightly, and the bangs in front of his forehead fell, covering his slightly reddened eyes. What are his virtues that he can meet a woman like Ding Xinhui? She always silently pays attention to everything she cares about. She gives without saying a word, never asking for anything in return, and never deliberately showing off her kindness. But Yian is a person who knows how to repay kindness. Today, he is too small in front of Ding Xinhui, and his meager efforts are simply not enough to repay this heavy kindness. The only way is to work hard to make money, become fully self-reliant, and one day truly be qualified to stand by her side. Instead, he will rely on a formal marriage, a one-year contract. With these thoughts in mind, Yian turned on the computer, his fingertips dancing lightly on the keyboard as he threw himself into his busy work. Chapter 87, Bidding. Chapter 87, Bidding. A week passed in the blink of an eye. Yian immersed himself in his busy work, like a tireless machine. He smoothly pushed forward the many projects he had taken over and managed them in an orderly manner. Among them, the key project entrusted by Lin Zhenyue was completed perfectly by Yian, and the final result far exceeded expectations. When the settlement was made, Yian's account was successfully credited with 3 million in income. He just calmly glanced at the incoming message. This impressive result was just the natural result of his hard work. It was a solid stepping stone on the road ahead. Just then, Yian's phone rang urgently, and the caller ID showed that it was Lin Zhenyue. He picked up the phone quickly, before he could say anything. Lin Zhenyue's hearty and gratified voice came through the receiver. Yian, you really did a great job this time. The results of this project are outstanding, and they have saved my company a lot of money. Yian responded modestly, Mr. Lin, you are too kind, this is what I should do. The successful implementation of the project could not have been achieved without the concerted efforts of the team members, as well as the trust and support you have given me. I have only done my part. Lin Zhenyue laughed and shook his head repeatedly at the other end of the phone. Although Yian could not see it, he could feel the appreciation in the laughter. Don't be modest, your abilities are obvious to everyone. Oh, by the way, I have something to tell you. There's a bidding competition in 3 days, and it's not an easy one. If you have a good idea, you might as well give it a try. I can help you get in touch with the people in charge. Although the competition is fierce, I'm sure you can stand out with your abilities. Yian had heard about this bidding competition, which had been the talk of the town lately. It is a giant in the financial world, and its every move can shake the industry. The founder and owner of the group is Lin Zhenyue, who comes from a family of financiers and has accumulated a wealth of experience and resources. Lin Zhenyue is known in the industry for being strict and powerful, and he has a decisive voice in the international financial arena. This time, Zhenyue Financial Group plans to launch a brand new financial technology product, an intelligent financial risk control integration platform. The winning team will not only receive project cooperation funds of up to tens of millions of dollars, but also be expected to participate in the optimization and upgrading of the platform and its nationwide promotion, sharing the generous dividends brought by the product with the Galaxy Group. Naturally, such generous rewards and excellent opportunities have attracted countless industry elites. Yian is indeed tempted by this bidding. The financial risk early warning system he is currently perfecting perfectly suits this bidding. It was like a magic weapon tailor-made for this bidding. Yian had gained a lot of inspiration from the last business banquet, and after returning, he had devoted himself to perfecting the financial risk early warning system. Previously, the risks in the system had been solved one by one. Now the system was coming to an end, and all indicators had reached top standards. 3 days was enough for him to complete it. Moreover, if he could win this bidding, he would reap a lot of tangible benefits. Not only would his professional reputation and status in the industry soar, but he would also receive a handsome financial reward. Lin Zong, I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. Yian's voice was tinged with excitement. Lin Zhenyue laughed heartily on the other end of the phone. Yi, I didn't open the door of convenience for you for no reason. I see you as a talent and only want to give you a helping hand and give you this opportunity. But the rest is up to you. The business world is a battlefield, and no one can hold your hand forever. But I believe that with your talent, as long as you work steadily, you will definitely be able to make a name for yourself. Yian held the phone in her hand, pursed her lips slightly, and instantly understood what Lin Zhenyue meant. The threshold for participating in this bidding is not low. The qualification requirements alone have deterred many eager competitors. Although Yian has achieved remarkable results in this period of time, his industry experience is indeed somewhat lacking. He is still far from reaching the line drawn by Galaxy Financial Group. Lin Zhenyue's intentions are not to use backdoor methods for himself. He is merely passing him a stepping stone, giving him a chance to enter the high-end market. In today's society, there are many people with a passion for their work who are unable to realize their potential. They just lack a stage on which to fully demonstrate their abilities. He will definitely be able to win this bid on his own. I am confident that as long as I can step onto that bidding stage, I will definitely be able to come up with a plan that will dazzle them. Good, I believe in you. After hanging up the phone, Yian felt as if he had been injected with a powerful stimulant. The feeling of fatigue that had surrounded him instantly disappeared without a trace. He stood up abruptly, and the chair made a harsh sound as it rubbed against the floor. Yian walked to the window in long strides. He pulled back the curtains, and the blinding sunlight poured in, illuminating his determined face. Outside the window, the city was bustling with traffic and people, noisy and prosperous. Yian's gaze penetrated all this, looking into the distance at the towering buildings that symbolized the financial core. There would soon become the battleground for his fight 3 days later. He knew full well that this battle would determine his future and his dreams. It would be his chance to go from an unknown to a leader in the industry. It would also be a crucial step towards truly being worthy of standing by Ding Xinhui's side. Yian looked out the window at the bustling cityscape, but the beautiful face of Ding Xinhui involuntarily came to mind. To him, Ding Xinhui was the warm dawn of an unexpected event in his life. She was the benefactor who reached out to help him in his time of need. But as they got to know each other better, the stirring in his heart grew stronger. He gradually became unwilling to remain in a marriage of convenience under her protection, and longed to stand shoulder to shoulder with her, to become a presence worthy of her. This bidding was the perfect opportunity for him to sprint towards this goal. Yian clenched his fists, his eyes glowing with intensity. The most important thing at the moment was to use the remaining 3 days to perfect the financial risk warning system to the extreme, ensuring that it was flawless. He quickly turned around and strode back to his desk. Before he could sit down in his chair, his hands were already rapidly tapping on the keyboard, and the code on the screen was scrolling rapidly. On the other side, Li Xueqian was sitting in her spacious and bright office, carefully going through a thick pile of bidding information in her hands. The Galaxy Group has really gone all out this time. Li Xueqian's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a determined smile, but sooner or later, this project will fall into my hands. Tian Shaosan was a little worried on the side. Xueqian, there are quite a few competitors in this bidding, and I heard that there are a few old industry powerhouses. Chapter 88 2 Similar Bids. Li Xueqian felt an uncontrollable surge of excitement. This bid was tailor-made for her. She had gone to great lengths to obtain the core technology of Yian. It was far superior to that of her industry peers and was a perfect match for the current bid. With this trump card in hand, winning the bid would be a breeze, wouldn't it? Shaoshan, what do you know? Li Xueqian threw the information in her hands onto the table. Her chin tilted slightly. So what if they are an old powerhouse? They just look impressive, but when it comes to real ability, they are not necessarily better. Tian Shaosan looked hesitant, but still muttered. What if Yian also participates in this bidding and comes up with the same system? Li Xueqian giggled as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. But there was a hint of coldness in her laughter. Yian? He is just a newcomer with no money and no background. In terms of qualifications and connections, I'm afraid he doesn't even have the qualifications to participate in the bidding. Even if Yian can participate in the bidding and bring the original technology, he may not be able to pull it off. The bidding is not just about technology, but also key areas such as the presentation. Can an inexperienced novice handle it? Moreover, she actually hopes that Yian will participate in the bidding and come up with the same system. In that case, she can sue him for plagiarism and bring him down. When he is cornered, he will have no choice but to beg her for forgiveness. The next 2 days passed without incident. Yian was busy with the finishing touches on the system, and in between, he found time to visit his grandmother. On the evening of the 3rd day, Yian was tapping away at the keyboard in his study. Ding Xinhui pushed open the door to the study, carrying a plate of cut fruit in her hands. She was walking lightly, and after working so hard for so long, she wanted to take a break with some fruit. Yian's eyes were fixed on the screen, and he just nodded slightly, saying, I'll eat it later, you can put it down for now. Ding Xinhui gently placed the fruit plate in the corner of the desk, and her gaze lingered softly on Yian. She understood Yian's busyness and pressure at the moment. She had also heard about his involvement in the bidding. Yian is really hardworking in his career, which is really commendable. Recently, Yian has completed many projects for the company and has made considerable income. If it were someone else, I'm afraid they would have long since been carried away by their success and fallen into the midst of a drunken celebration. Then they would gradually lose themselves in their comfort and stagnate. But Yian is completely different. He is not at all greedy for the results in front of him. Without hesitation, she threw herself into this challenging bidding. She stood quietly on the sidelines, secretly gazing at Yian's focused profile. A slight frown, a fiery light in her eyes. All of it exuded a unique charm in her eyes, as if there was an invisible attraction that made her heart involuntarily stirred. She knew that this bidding was a contest of strength, and on this stage of fair competition, there were no shortcuts. Even though she is the richest person in the Dragon Kingdom and has an incredible amount of wealth and power, she cannot arbitrarily interfere and disrupt the rules and order of the business world. She silently told herself in her heart that as Yian's wife, the support she can give him at this moment is to take care of his daily life in this warm home, so that he can sprint with no worries. Outside, she will silently keep an eye on the developments in all directions for him, guarding him against possible malicious attacks. She firmly believes that Yian will stand out in the bidding thanks to his talent and hard work. Just then, Ding Xinhui's phone rings with a slight WeChat notification tone. She takes out her phone and sees that it's a message from her parents, who said they'll be back in a couple of days. Her parents were supposed to return a week ago, but the flight has been delayed due to the ongoing snowstorm there. She gently pouts her red lips. Now that her parents are about to return, this is undoubtedly good news. However, Yian was currently immersed in the intense preparations before the bidding, and every second was precious. Ding Xinhui knew that this bidding was very important to Yian, and she didn't want family matters to distract Yian. She planned to keep the news of her parents' return a secret until Yian was finished. Then, Ding Xinhui gently walked out of the study. 11 p.m. The entire city was wrapped in the quiet night, and the hustle and bustle gradually subsided. Yian was in the study, saving the completed system with the crisp click of the mouse. At this moment, the fatigue brought on by long periods of sitting and concentration suddenly rushed through his body. He rubbed his sore eyes hard, then let out a long breath. He quickly sent the system to Lin Zhenyue. A moment later, the phone screen lit up. Lin Zhenyue's reply came into view. "Yi, I received it. I think it's very good. I have confidence in your system, and I will send it to the bidder on time tomorrow." Yian looked at the message and the corner of her mouth rose slightly. The hard work and dedication of these days had been recognized by Lin Zhenyue at this moment. It made him feel more secure and confident. The next day, Galaxy Financial Group. The president's office was spacious and bright. Xinhui has sat behind the large desk. He is past the age of doubt, and the years have left a few shallow wrinkles on his well-defined face, but they have also given him a mature and steady temperament. He wears a pair of exquisite metal-rimmed glasses on his nose, which add a touch of elegance. His eyes behind the lenses are deep and bright. He is wearing a well-tailored, high-end suit, with a meticulously tied tie, exuding the majestic aura of someone who has been in a high position for a long time. At the moment, he is intently going through the thick documents in his hands. From time to time, the pen in his hand annotates something on the edge of the document. The office is quiet, with only the rustling of the pen scratching against the paper. Suddenly, a crisp knock on the door breaks the silence. "Come in." The secretary gently pushes open the door, holding a thick folder in her hands, her expression slightly grave. "Mr. Shen, the bidding situation is a bit complicated this time. We have received a total of 100 bids so far. After preliminary screening by the team, we have selected 5 that stand out, both in terms of creativity and feasibility. However," the secretary paused, biting her lip slightly, as if she was having difficulty speaking. Xinhui had keenly captured the secretary's unease. He looked up, his gaze straight through the lens. His voice was calm but unmistakable. "Just say what you have to say, don't beat around the bush." The secretary took a deep breath and gathered her courage to say. 2 of the 5 bids are extremely similar. From the core framework to the construction ideas, and even the data references in some of the details are exactly the same. If we hadn't compared them word for word, we would have missed it. Upon hearing this, Xinhui's brows furrowed slightly. He reached out his hand and said, "Let me see. Chapter 89, isn't this blatant plagiarism?" The secretary hurriedly stepped forward and respectfully handed the folder to Xinhui. Xinhui took the folder and quickly opened the 2 suspicious bids. His gaze was sharp as he scanned the content page by page. As he read on, his face grew increasingly gloomy. At first glance, these 2 bids were quite good. The ideas were novel and unique, and the construction was clear and rigorous. Among the hundreds of bids, they really stood out. But these 2 bids were not similar, they were practically identical. Was this not blatant plagiarism? Did they take him, Xinhui, for a fool? Or did they think that his Xinhui Financial Group's bid was something that could be trifled with? This was nonsense. These people had some nerve. How dare they pull this kind of stunt under his nose? They really don't take him seriously at all. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. If this kind of blatant plagiarism is allowed to get away with in the bidding process, then what kind of fairness can be expected in the various activities held by the group in the future? And how can we attract truly talented and capable teams to cooperate? This is not only unfair to other participants who have prepared the bidding documents with great care, but also seriously damages the reputation of Galaxy Financial Group. If word got out, people would laugh at him, saying that Xinhui was incompetent and couldn't even manage a bidding process. No, this kind of behavior must not be tolerated. He slammed the bid on the table and shouted angrily. How dare someone blatantly copy a serious bidding process? What kind of place does my Galaxy Financial Group think it is? A playground where they can trample the rules as they please? The secretary shivered in fear, head bowed, not daring to breathe. Xinxing has stood up and paced back and forth in the office, his heart filled with deep displeasure. He had always valued the company's reputation and fairness, and this plagiarism incident was undoubtedly challenging his bottom line. Find out immediately, and find out who the team behind these two bids is, and see who is behind this. Xinxing has stopped in his tracks and turned to look at the secretary, his eyes full of coldness. Also, conduct a second review of the remaining 3 bids and any other bids that appear suspicious. Anyone who causes me trouble will pack their bags and get out. The secretary nodded repeatedly, his voice trembling. Yes, Mr. Shen, I'll get right on it. An hour later. The secretary returned. Fine beads of sweat were still on the secretary's forehead, indicating that he had been running around a lot in the past hour. Mr. Shen, I've found out. The 2 similar bids, one was from Li Xueqian's company, and the other was from a young man recommended by Lin Zhenyue, called Yian. As she spoke, the secretary hurriedly stepped forward and respectfully handed Xinxing the 2 collated pieces of information. Xinxing's brows furrowed slightly, and a flash of surprise passed through his eyes. He reached out and took the information, and began to read it. The moment he finished reading it, his brows tightened even more. Li Xueqian's company may not be a top player in the industry, but it is considered an old company. After so many years of hard work, it should not be stupid enough to make such a low-level mistake. If this plagiarism is confirmed, the company's reputation will be completely ruined, and everything it has accumulated in the past will be for naught. Li Xueqian cannot be unaware of the stakes. When he thought about Yi Yan's information, Xinxing's gaze unconsciously became more scrutinizing. A greenhorn with no experience, with his qualifications, he would not even be eligible to participate in this bidding. Although Lin Zhenyue highly recommended him, Lin had always been recognized for his vision and was a person who valued talent. But time does not forgive people, and it is not impossible that he has misjudged this time. In today's world, some young people have many tricks up their sleeves in order to achieve their goals. They say one thing but mean another, sweet-talking their seniors into a spin, and it's hard to defend against. It's possible that Lao Lin was fooled by Yi Yan's sweet talk. The more Xinxing thought about it, the more suspicious he felt about Yi Yan. His fingers unconsciously tapped heavily on the information a few times, and he snorted in secret. In his opinion, Yi Yan might have just seen this as an opportunity to make a big leap. He thinks that plagiarizing a little bit of someone else's idea will get him through, and he treats the entire bidding process like a joke. He also doesn't take the rules of the Galaxy Financial Group seriously. If he really makes him catch this kid cheating, no matter who recommended Yi Yan behind him, he won't be able to continue in this industry. Thinking about this, he said sternly. Go, notify Li Xueqian and Yi Yan, and be at the company at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning for a confrontation. If anyone dares not to come, they will be disqualified from the bidding. Also, invite representatives from leading companies in the industry to witness it. Invite reporters from several authoritative media outlets as well. I want to expose this scene and let the entire industry take a look. Dare to mess with the bidding of my Galaxy Financial Group, and you will pay a painful price. The secretary quickly responded and immediately went out to convey the instructions. Yi Yan was working in his own company when his phone suddenly rang. When he answered, he heard the other party inform him that they would go to the company at 10 o'clock the next morning for a confrontation. First, he was stunned, then his eyebrows furrowed, and his mind was full of doubts and confusion. He subconsciously gripped the phone tightly and asked, "What's going on? Why do we need to confront each other? I don't quite understand." The other end of the line just coldly replied that his bidding document was suspected of plagiarism, and he just needed to be there on time, and then hung up. Yi Yan held the phone that had been hung up, and stood there in shock for a long time. Soon, he took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down, and his mind started racing. Suspected plagiarism? That's nonsense. He knew full well how hard he had worked to improve the system step by step over time. It was completely his own work, so how could it be plagiarized? He frowned slightly, carefully reviewing the past, and a thought flashed through his mind. Could it be Li Xueqian? He remembered that when he was dating Li Xueqian before, he did have a half-finished system. It is estimated that she took that version and then processed it some more, and also participated in this bidding. But she didn't have the core technology, so how did she improve it? However, even if she improved it based on the previous prototype, she managed to make it. That system must also have many flaws, and he had verified it before, and there were huge potential dangers in it. There is simply no way to reach the standard of his improved system today. As he thought about this, a sense of certainty flashed in Yian's eyes. This was a system he had built with his own hands. He firmly believed that when the time came for a face-to-face confrontation, he would be able to prove his innocence. While thinking about this, Yian walked back to his workstation and really prepared evidence to prove his innocence. On the other side of the room, Li Shueqian was sitting in her office. Tian Shaosan hurriedly came in and announced. Because the two bids were similar, there was a plagiarism issue. So she had to go to Galaxy Financial Group to confront them. Li Shueqian was stunned for a moment after hearing the news. Then the corner of her mouth slightly lifted, raising a sneer. Shaosan, what are you panicking about? It's just a confrontation, what's there to be afraid of? Chapter 90, Dear wife, just wait for my good news. Suspected plagiarism? Then there is only one possibility. Yian was also involved in this bidding. I don't know what kind of dogshit luck he has, but he is actually qualified to get involved. But so what? He is just a recent college graduate with no money and no background. She, on the other hand, represents an old and respectable company in the industry. She leaned back in her chair, her eyes full of disdain as she watched Yian succeed. Who in their right mind would believe that a young guy like Yian could have created such an amazing system? All she had to do was deny it, insist that Yian had plagiarized her work. Everyone would surely side with her and agree that it was the result of her company's efforts. This would be a perfect opportunity for her. She can use this accusation of plagiarism as an excuse to completely suppress Yian. She will make sure that he can never rise again in this industry, and she will see how he can oppose her in the future. As she thought about this, a fierce look flashed in Li Shueqian's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. She knew exactly where the core technology of her system came from. She had gone through a lot of trouble to get the core technology from Yian. She had also found Jiang San, an extrajudicial madman who wandered in the gray area. Although Jiang San's business is all shady, he is reliable when it comes to reputation. After all, in their circle, if you lose your reputation, you won't be able to get by in the future. She is certain that Jiang San will definitely not betray her, and the evidence of those private transactions will not be uncovered. Li Shueqian looked up at Tian Shaosan with a hint of impatience in her tone. Hurry up and organize all the information we previously prepared about the system development process. The more detailed the better, so that people will think we have done this independently. Also, contact those colleagues we know well and those who have a say in the industry, and let them know in advance, so that they can say a few good words for us. I just don't believe that we can't fix Yian this time. Tian Shaoshan looked at Li Shueqian, who looked so confident, and although she was still a little anxious. But she didn't dare say anything more, and could only nod, hurrying to prepare as she was told. Li Shueqian sat in her chair, her eyes staring menacingly ahead. It was as if she could already see Yian being disgraced and humiliated by her. The smile on the corner of her mouth became more and more obvious. On the other side, the most luxurious office in the Ding Group. Ding Xinhui sat behind her large desk, listening to Secretary Wang's report. A layer of frost instantly covered her pretty face. This Li Shueqian really couldn't help herself from taking action. She really doesn't know when to die, daring to lay hands on Yian. She won't sit idly by and let Li Shueqian do whatever she wants. Ding Xinhui's beautiful eyes were tinged with a hint of coldness. She looked up and looked at Secretary Wang. How is the evidence of Li Shueqian's plagiarism being collected? It is being collected, and it is not complete yet, but we are already doing our best to follow up on the clues and try to complete it as soon as possible. Upon hearing this, Ding Xinhui lightly tapped on the table, pondered for a moment, and said in a cold voice. Continue. The evidence must be complete enough, and she must not be given any opportunity. She wants Li Shueqian to know what the consequences of moving Yian will be. Ding Xinhui's eyebrows furrowed slightly, and her heart was full of worry. After hesitating for a moment, she still picked up her phone and dialed Yian's number. When the call connected, she said softly, Honey, I heard about the confrontation. Why don't I go with you? Upon hearing this, Yian's gaze became soft and bright. He knew that Ding Xinhui was doing this for his own good. As usual, she had reached out without hesitation when he needed her most. However, if Ding Xinhui accompanied him, given her popularity in the business world, the two of them would most likely be exposed. Their marriage was a formality, and if it became public knowledge, it might cause Ding Xinhui a lot of trouble and have a negative impact. Those who coveted the wealth of the Ding group might make a big deal out of it, affecting the reputation of the Ding group. Moreover, this was a challenge for his own career, and he could not always rely on Ding Xinhui's protection. He hoped to solve the problem with his own abilities and prove his innocence and strength. Ding Xinhui had already done too much for him, and he could not hide behind her forever. If he wanted to grow and truly establish himself in this highly competitive business world, he had to face these difficulties and setbacks alone. So Yian said softly, "Wife, thank you for your kindness, but I can handle this myself." Ding Xinhui bit her red lips slightly, and the worry in her eyes did not dissipate. "I'm still a little worried." Yian smiled softly at the other end of the line, her voice full of confidence and reassurance. Ding Xinhui also knew that Yian had built the system bit by bit with his own hands. He knew every detail and could never be easily framed by Li Xueqian. She felt slightly relieved as she listened to Yian's firm words. "Okay, then please be careful. If there's any trouble, you must tell me right away." "I will. Just wait for my good news." The next day, sunlight shone through the thin clouds and fell on the towering Galaxy Financial Group building. A large conference hall within the group had already been set up. Representatives from leading companies in the industry took their seats one after the other, whispering to each other, their expressions betraying curiosity and interest in this confrontation. Journalists from several authoritative media outlets who had been invited carried cameras and microphones. They looked around the venue for a suitable shooting angle, ready to record this highly anticipated confrontation. Li Xueqian was dressed in designer clothes, with exquisite makeup, striding with arrogance. Behind her was Tian Shaosan and a group of company entourage. It was as if she wasn't here to be investigated for plagiarism, but to attend a victory celebration. Yian, dressed in a sharp suit, walked into the group building with a steady pace. His eyes were firm, his face calm, but he was still slightly nervous inside. The two met unexpectedly at the door to the meeting room. Li Xueqian was momentarily taken aback when she saw Yian. She and Yian had not seen each other for a long time. She felt that Yian had left her, and the Li family, like a young bird that had lost its protection. He should have been devastated by reality and should look dispirited and despondent. In her imagination, Yian might have a full beard and dull eyes. The once spirited man who left her should have been worn down and exhausted by life. He should have a despondent air about him. But the Yian in front of her not only didn't look in the least bit dispirited. Instead, he stood upright, with an air of self-assurance that was hard to ignore. His face was clean and fresh, and his eyes were bright and sharp. Chapter 91, The Confrontation Begins. Li Xueqian couldn't help but feel a little jolt of unease. She had originally planned to use Yian's disheveled appearance to her advantage during the confrontation. She would overwhelm him with her aura, so that anyone watching would think that Yian had no other choice but to resort to plagiarism because he was desperate. But now the situation was completely unexpected. Yian is so full of energy, which makes her look like the guilty party. She clenched her teeth. She must not be fooled by Yian's appearance. Yian is just pretending to be strong. In any case, she must pin the plagiarism charge on Yian today. She will turn black into white and send him to hell. "Oh, Yian, long time no see. I never thought we would meet here in this way. What a surprise." Her words were full of sarcasm. She was trying to confuse Yian in this way and seize the initiative in the confrontation that was to follow. Yian just gave her a cold look, her tone full of undisguised disgust. "Li Xueqian, didn't anyone tell you that you look like a QR code?" Li Xueqian was momentarily stunned. "What do you mean? If I didn't scan you, I wouldn't know what you are." Li Xueqian, who had recovered her senses, was furious and her chest heaved. "You." Li Xueqian took a deep breath to calm herself down. "Yian, you are being stubborn now, but you will see what happens later." "I want to see if you can still be so arrogant then." Yian sneered. "Do you think that with your little tricks you can do anything to me? Let me tell you, I, Yian, have always acted with integrity. You used those despicable tactics, but be careful, you'll only end up biting the hand that feeds you." After saying this, Yian paid no more attention to Li Xueqian and walked straight towards the meeting room. Li Xueqian looked at Yian's back, her face turning from green to white with anger. She clenched her fists. "Yian, we'll see about this." The representatives of the leading companies and the media reporters around them all sensed the tense atmosphere between the two. They began to whisper among themselves, their eyes full of curiosity and anticipation. Yian entered the meeting room, which was already full of people. Shen Xinghao was sitting on the podium, expression solemn. Next to him were several senior experts and notary personnel. He saw Yian and Li Shueqian enter and nodded slightly, indicating for them to sit down. Shen Xinghao spoke first. We have gathered here today because we have discovered a serious problem in the bidding documents. Two bids are extremely similar and are suspected of plagiarism. This is a blatant provocation against our Galaxy Financial Group and a disruption of the level playing field in the industry. As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd, which had been chatting in low voices, instantly fell silent. This was followed by a series of exclamations and murmurs. It's plagiarism? This is serious. A representative of a leading company frowned. Dare to do this in the Galaxy Financial Group's bidding, this is trying to completely ruin their careers. Another representative next to him guessed in a low voice. Judging from Li Shueqian's confident look, it doesn't seem like she's done something plagiarizing from others. Besides, her company also has a certain reputation in the industry, so she wouldn't do such a stupid thing. That's right, it must be Yian. I heard that Yian was not even eligible to participate in the bidding, and it was only because of Lin Zhenyue's recommendation that he got in. I heard that too. I guess he just wanted to take advantage of Lin Zhenyue's connections and take the shortcut with Galaxy Financial Group, thinking that he could get away with it. Young people nowadays are really getting more and more impetuous, daring to do anything for the sake of profit. The media reporters, on the other hand, were like sharks that had smelled blood, their eyes gleaming. They knew that this would be a highly explosive news story. Some reporters had already started jotting down the reactions of the crowd. Others were quietly adjusting the angle of their cameras, trying to capture every key expression and detail. They were all hoping that this confrontation would reveal more explosive information, so that their reports could attract more attention. Amidst all the commotion, Yi Anjing sat quietly in his seat. Although his expression was calm, his heart was turbulent. He knew that he faced a huge challenge, not only to prove his innocence, but also to dispel the prejudices and misunderstandings that everyone had about him. He vowed secretly that he would let the truth be known to the world. As she listened to the comments of the crowd, Li Shueqian's mouth slightly lifted upwards, and a hint of smugness could be seen in her eyes. She elegantly crossed her legs, leaned back slightly, and rested against the back of her chair, in a posture of total confidence. She took out a small mirror from her exquisite handbag without any haste and opened it gently. She carefully examined her makeup in the mirror, and gently smoothed the corners of her mouth with her fingers to ensure that her lipstick was perfect. Then she put the mirror back in her bag, looked up, and scanned the crowd in the venue, finally landing on Yian. In her eyes, Yian was just making a futile struggle. From the very beginning of this competition, Yian was destined to be the loser. She has prepared thoroughly, so what can Yian do to compete with her? Everything she has planned is flawless. The information she has prepared in advance and the communication with her peers will be the key to her victory. Yian is just an arrogant clown, what can he possibly win? Shen Xinghai indicated for everyone to be quiet, and then continued. Now, please let Ms. Li Shueqian and Mr. Yian explain your system design ideas and research and development processes. Li Shueqian got the signal and stood up, walking with a confident smile to the podium. The camera lens followed her closely. She cleared her throat and started her presentation in a clear and loud voice. Honorable guests, our company's system has been carefully developed and polished by the team over a long period of time, from the initial market research. As she spoke, she pointed at the system architecture diagram displayed on the big screen with the pointer in her hand. During the development process, we invested a lot of manpower, material resources, and time, from every detail of code writing. Soon after, Li Shueqian finished her explanation. Li Shueqian's acquaintances in the audience, as well as those who had tipped her off in advance, nodded in approval. One of them said aloud, General Manager Li's explanation was clear and concise, and the logic and process of the development were flawless. It was obvious that this was the result of their company's independent research and development. Another person chimed in, yes, in comparison, how could Jian, a young man with no background, have created such a complex and excellent system? The suspicion of plagiarism is really too great. President Li's system is obvious to be the result of great effort. How could such a mature and complete system be plagiarized? I think some people need to reflect on themselves. Others also chimed in, and for a while there was much discussion in the meeting room, mostly in favor of Li Shueqian's remarks. Chapter 92, I have evidence too. Some people who were neutral kept whispering to each other. Li Shueqian has a point, but we can't just listen to one side of the story. We still have to see what Jian has to say. Yes, it's too early to take sides. There might be a reversal later. Lin Zhenyue was also here. As he listened to these discussions, his brows furrowed slightly. President Shen, it's really too hasty to conclude that Jian has plagiarized just based on President Li's explanation. Let's hear what Jian has to say first. Although Shen Xinghe was inclined to believe that Jian had plagiarized, the proper procedures still had to be followed. Mr. Jian, please come up and explain. Jian stood up and walked to the podium. He first politely bowed slightly to the crowd, then looked firmly at the audience and began to explain. Everyone, although I don't have the support of a large team, I am alone. But this system was indeed polished bit by me through day and night research. From the initial conception of its prototype, I have constantly consulted materials and repeated testing. However, before Jian could finish his words, those who stood up for Li Shueqian could not wait to interrupt him. One of them, full of disdain, shouted at the top of his voice. You alone, can you make such an amazing system? You're just bragging. Someone immediately chimed in, exactly, how could such a complicated system be made by one person? You're just a rookie, how could you be so amazing? I'm afraid you've plagiarized someone else's work and are still bragging about it. Others chimed in, their words becoming more and more insulting. Exactly, don't look at your own weight, and you still dare to say you did it all yourself, do you think we're all idiots? I guess they just want to steal the limelight by plagiarizing. This kind of person should be banned from the industry. Their faces were full of contempt, and they had already decided that Jian was the plagiarist. Li Shueqian sat in the audience, watching Jian being besieged by the crowd. The corner of her mouth rose slightly, and her eyes revealed schadenfreude. Jian, do you think you can fight me? Who would believe that such a small person like you could make such an amazing thing? Today's confrontation is the end of you, and I will completely destroy your reputation. The crowd, which had remained neutral, murmured. It seems that Jian really is the plagiarist. How could one person have made this? What if Jian really did make it alone? It's hard to believe, but just because you couldn't do it doesn't mean someone else couldn't. We'll have to hear the rest of the story before we judge. The crowd looked puzzled, and they were half convinced by Yian's claim. Without more evidence, they dare not jump to conclusions. Lin Zhenyue's face fell when he heard those harsh words. Naturally, he believed in Yian's abilities. Yian had fully demonstrated his outstanding talent and solid professional skills in previous projects they had worked on together. He swept his gaze over those who had disparaged Jian, his tone serious. A person's abilities cannot be judged solely on the basis of their qualifications. I hope everyone can remain impartial and listen to Yian's explanation before making a decision, rather than making groundless slander like this. Shen Xinghe looked at Lin Zhenyue's firm attitude. He didn't want to offend Lin, so he signaled for Yian to continue. Yian took a deep breath to try to calm himself down. These people have jumped to a rash conclusion based on nothing but prejudice, which is really unfair. But he must not let their words disturb him. He must speak the truth and let everyone know that he, Yian, has a clear conscience. His eyes became cold, and a hint of determination shone in them. He once again scanned the room, raised his voice, and continued. I know that many of you don't believe me, but I can tell you that in the process of developing this system, I have encountered countless bottlenecks. Take the data encryption module as an example. I have consulted various professional materials at home and abroad, tried dozens of different algorithm combinations, and conducted tens of thousands of simulation tests before finally finalizing the current solution. As Yian spoke, he called up the relevant data records and test reports on the big screen, as well as the system compatibility optimization part. After Yian finished his explanation, the venue suddenly exploded, and everyone started talking at once, with all kinds of voices intertwined. Some believed Jian, while others believed Li Shueqian. Still others were just there to watch the show and didn't care who the real plagiarist was. Shen Xinghe frowned, looking at Yian's composed appearance, and his displeasure grew stronger. This young man, despite his young age, had the audacity to be suspected of plagiarism in such an important bidding, and yet he remained so calm. Since Yian is so stubborn, he will definitely make Yian speechless today and completely expose Yian's true colors. So, Shen Xinghe said with a stern face, Yian, you keep saying that you are innocent, but do you have any evidence to prove it? You can't just say it, this confrontation today must have a solid basis in order to determine who is right and who is wrong. Yian nodded slightly and said without panic. Mr. Shen, I naturally have evidence. I have the original data records from the system development process, including detailed records of every algorithm adjustment, code modification, and test data from each stage. These clearly show the trajectory of the system's independent development step by step. As he spoke, Yian displayed the relevant data on the big screen, which was detailed and clearly organized. Many people present looked thoughtful after seeing it. Those who were originally neutral began to lean towards Yian's innocence. So it turns out that he really did do it himself. The evidence is very convincing. Before, I almost joined the others in wrongly accusing him. Yes, it seems that you can't judge a book by its cover. Yian really is good at what he does. Those who had taken sides with Li Shueqian fell silent, looking at each other, and they could see disbelief in each other's eyes. Xinxing's brows furrowed slightly, and there was a hint of doubt in his eyes. Could it be that Yian created this system? Did he really misjudge him? Lin Zhenyue's originally solemn expression on his face instantly eased a lot. The corner of his mouth rose slightly, and his eyes were full of praise for Yian. This is solid evidence. Such a detailed record, with every step clearly explained, how could it be easily falsified? As he expected. Yian is being wronged. This young man has always relied on his true abilities and hard work to get things done. Good boy, he really didn't let him down. He knew Yian could do it. Now the truth will finally be revealed. Let's see what those who slandered Yian have to say now. However, Li Shueqian suddenly spoke up at this moment. Yian, you think you're the only one with evidence? I have some too.